Chapter 110. At the back of the Yun family's mountain, the man sat in a wheelchair. The sun shone down on his entire body. It was as if he was bathing in the sun. His green robe was shrouded in a faint light. There was a book on his lap. His entire attention was focused on the book. He didn't even notice Yun Luofeng appear beside him. Second uncle. A familiar and gentle voice suddenly came from the side, and it finally caused the man to turn his head. When his elegant and handsome face saw the young girl beside him, he couldn't help but smile. His smile was very beautiful. It easily stirred up Yun Luofeng's heart. The sorrow between his brows was so strong that it made her heart clench fiercely. Yun Luofeng looked at the beautiful man who made one's heart ache and said, "Second uncle, after this period of time, I have been taking care of you. Now, I can begin the final treatment. Very soon, you will be able to stand on your legs." Xianxia's fingers, which were flipping through the book, suddenly stiffened. He raised his handsome eyebrows and asked in disbelief, "Xiaofeng, you just said, I can stand up again?" Yun Luofeng met the man's astonished gaze and nodded solemnly, "Actually, I could have let you stand up again a long time ago. However, if I hadn't taken care of you for a period of time, even if you stood up, your legs wouldn't be as nimble as before. That's why I've waited until today to truly treat you." Xianxia's breathing stopped. To be honest, he had never thought that there would be a day when he would be able to stand up again. Even though Yun Luofeng had promised him before, he did not dare to believe it. He was afraid that after believing it he would only receive despair. Now, facing Yun Luofeng's confident eyes once again, he was suddenly at a loss. Perhaps his little niece could really cure him? "Second uncle, it won't be long before you can stand up again. You won't need to rely on a wheelchair to walk anymore." Yun Luofeng smiled as she spoke. She had waited for this day for too long. "Little Feng." Xianxia came back to his senses, and a smile as gentle as the wind appeared on his fair face. A pair of handsome eyes stared at the young girl standing beside him, and said gently, "Second uncle can let you try. If you fail, you don't have to be discouraged. Second uncle is already very satisfied with your heart." His words were not only for Yun Luofeng to hear, but also to warn himself. If the treatment failed, then no matter what, he could not show that he was disheartened. Otherwise, the one who would be hurt would be Yun Luofeng. "Second uncle, I have 100% confidence in curing you." Yun Luofeng blinked at Xianxia, his black eyes filled with confidence. "Pick up your clothes now, I'll give you acupuncture." "All right." Xianxia smiled faintly and picked up her clothes without hesitation, revealing her two black and purple legs. His two legs were covered in patches of purplish black. It was obvious that he had been forcefully pinched. After seeing this scene, Yun Luofeng raised his head, and his astonished gaze fell upon the man's elegant face. The man's tone was calm, as if he was narrating an insignificant matter. "For the past 10 years, my two legs have not been able to feel anything. Sometimes, I would pinch it unwillingly, and I would even use a hammer to strike it, using a broken porcelain bowl to cut it. No matter how much strength I used, it would not feel any pain. Later, the servant girl who served me discovered my self-mutilation, so she took the hammer away, and the porcelain bowl became a wooden bowl." Chapter 111. The man's increasingly indifferent tone made Yun Luofeng's heart ache even more. She slightly lowered her eyes, and her words were abnormally firm. "Second uncle, no matter who hurt you back then, I will make them pay the price. A debt of blood should be paid in blood." Those people had paralyzed second uncle for more than 10 years. Sooner or later, she would cripple their limbs. Let them have a taste of the pain and torture second uncle had suffered. "Little Feng, I was too young and arrogant back then, that's why I was tortured like this. You can't make the same mistake again. That power is too powerful, it's an existence that you can't resist. Second uncle doesn't want you to be hunted down by that power for revenge." Xianxia stared at Yun Luofeng and solemnly instructed him. His voice was filled with concern, causing a warm current to flow through Yun Luofeng's heart. His gaze towards the man became even more resolute. "Second uncle, in the future, with me in the Yun family, I will not allow anyone to harm the Yun family. The burden of the Yun family will be borne by me. and I will make the Yun family stronger, so that no one will dare to provoke us." The young girl's eyes were wild as she swore in a domineering voice. Suddenly, Xianxia laughed. "Feng, you've grown up. You have ambitions and ambitions. Your parents will definitely be at ease if they know about this." Yun Luofeng smiled. "Second uncle, it's getting late. Let's start the treatment now." "All right." Yun Xingya nodded. No matter what Yun Luofeng wanted to do, he would unconditionally support her actions, even if it was at the cost of his own life. The sun set in the west. The dim yellow light poured down, covering every corner of the back mountain. Yun Xingya stared blankly at the beautiful girl who had put away the silver needles. Her tone carried a trace of doubt. "Is that all?" "Second uncle, why don't you try pinching my leg with your own hands?" Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows slightly, his beautiful face revealing a demonic and wanton smile. Yun Xingya trembled as he stretched out his hand and fiercely pinched his leg. Immediately, a sore feeling spread out from his leg, causing him to freeze on the spot. How many years had it been? How many years had it been since his leg had felt such pain? Even when he used the broken bowl to cut his legs until they were dripping with blood, he didn't feel the slightest bit of pain. But now, he could finally feel his numb legs again. Yun Luofeng looked at the stunned Yun Xingya and blinked at him. "Second uncle, I've already cured your leg, but you've been paralyzed for so many years, so you can't immediately walk like a normal person. You still need to rest for a while, so don't tell Grandpa about this during this period of time. When you can completely walk, then give him a surprise." Yun Xingya finally came back to his senses. His heart could not help but become excited, to the point that he could not even hear what Yun Luofeng said next. His pair of handsome eyes contained a faint luster. "Feng, I can feel my legs. They can finally feel something." Yun Xingya was so excited that she spoke incoherently. "I originally thought that I would have to stay in this wheelchair for the rest of my life, but I didn't expect your appearance to bring me such a strong surprise. Feng, I don't know how to thank you." Yun Luofeng raised the corner of his lips and smiled evilly. "Second uncle, if you want to thank me, then help me manage the army. How about that?" Chapter 112. Army. Yun Xingya recovered from her excitement. Her cold eyes were filled with doubt. "What army?" "Second uncle." Yun Luofeng was silent for a moment before saying, "I have established an army. This army is divided into 2 teams, and they are divided according to gender. The Steel Legion is currently lacking a leader, and only you can take this position. The only person I can trust is you." Yun Xingya was startled for a moment. She raised her head and met the girl's bright eyes. He couldn't help but smile, and the sadness between his brows had been replaced by confidence. "Little Feng, second uncle will definitely help you with your matters. Give second uncle 5 years, no. In 3 years, second uncle can give you an invincible, iron-blooded army." Yun Luofeng stared at Yun Xingya, who was full of confidence. He couldn't help but imagine the scene of this man sitting in a wheelchair and pointing at the world. He had the style of a hero of his generation. In the Long Yuan Kingdom, the crown prince, Gao Ling, was suffering from a serious illness. His spiritual energy had suddenly disappeared, and even the imperial physicians were helpless. Therefore, the imperial palace had put up a notice saying that whoever could cure the crown prince would be rewarded handsomely. Unfortunately, countless doctors had tried, but none of them were able to treat the crown prince's illness. At this time, someone had seen Yun Luofeng's ability to treat Elder Ning, so he asked His Majesty to summon Yun Luofeng into the palace to treat the crown prince. However, Gao Tu did not trust Yun Luofeng. He was afraid that she would use this opportunity to threaten the royal family and become the crown prince's concubine. Therefore, Gao Tu rejected this official's advice. As the saying goes, hearing is believing, seeing is believing. In his impression, Yun Luofeng had always been a piece of trash. This kind of trash didn't even know any medical skills. Even if he summoned her into the palace, it would be useless. Just as the royal family was under immense pressure because of the crown prince's matter, Yun Luofeng's life had been extremely peaceful over the past half a year. Without the disturbance of those people, she had wholeheartedly cultivated in the back mountains, and she did not even have the time to tease Yun Xiao. At this moment, in the house at the back of the mountain, the young girl sitting cross-legged slowly opened her eyes and let out a breath of turbid air. After half a year of seclusion, my strength has more or less increased. The Steel Legion and the Flame Legion have also gradually grown under the leadership of Second Uncle and Qingyan. I just don't know what has happened in the outside world in the past 6 months. Ji. A small head popped out from her sleeves. Milk Tea opened her big black eyes and looked curiously at Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng retrieved the little fellow from his sleeve and gently stroked its head. You're really enviable. You didn't need to cultivate to become a low-rank advanced spiritualist in just half a year, but you also consumed many of my spiritual medicines. The gold-seeking rat was different from ordinary spiritual beasts. Its cultivation was built on the accumulation of countless medicinal herbs. Yun Luofeng had given it many spirit herbs, which was why it could grow so quickly. Of course, if it wanted to increase its cultivation, ordinary elixirs wouldn't be able to provide it with enough power. Little Imo, how's the growth of the red arbutus tree? Yun Luofeng stuffed the milk tea back into his sleeves and asked mentally. After a while, Little Mo's voice rang in Lin Fan's mind. Master, the redbud tree has already bloomed. It won't be long before it bears fruit. I estimate that it will be soon. Yun Luofeng smiled. She stood up from her bed and walked out the door. Once the red arbutus tree bears spiritual fruits, it'll be able to increase grandfather's strength. Moreover, Second Uncle's legs have completely adapted to walking these past 2 days. Therefore, I can give the old fellow 2 surprises this time. Chapter 113. Inside the Imperial Palace, in a tall building. In the Imperial study, Gao Tu was reading through the memorials. Suddenly, a cold snort sounded out from behind him, startling him so much that he dropped the brush in his hand. Looks like you've been living a leisurely life as an emperor? You haven't reported to the sect for a long time. The voice was like a curse, causing the usually calm Gao Tu to tremble. He quickly stood up from the dragon throne and turned to look at the woman who had appeared behind him. The woman was dressed in a green robe with an emerald belt around her waist. She had a purple veil draped over her body as she walked towards the dragon throne with light steps and sat down as though there was no one else around. She crossed her legs and played with the brush on the table. Her willowy eyebrows raised slightly as her clear eyes swept towards Gao Tuesday. Gao Tu, don't forget that your status as an emperor was given to you by the spiritual sect. You can take it back at any time. The woman twirled the brush leisurely as she spoke with a hidden meaning. Miss, Gao Tu laughed bitterly. Recently, the Crown Prince of Long Yuan country has contracted a serious illness. I've been searching for famous doctors to treat him and was unable to report to the spiritual sect in time. Please forgive me, Mississippi. If the citizens of Long Yuan country were to see Gao Tu bowing and scraping in front of a woman, they would definitely be shocked. Who was this woman to make Gao Tu so fearful? Gao Tu, I'm here to give you a mission. Si Xian looked at the man in the bright yellow robe who had a respectful expression on his face and said calmly, Now, put aside the matter of finding a doctor for the Crown Prince and use all the resources in Long Yuan country to find a person for me. I wonder who Miss Si is looking for? Gao Tu looked at Si Xian in surprise. The spiritual sect was very powerful. As the miss of the spiritual sect, it should be easy for Si Xian to find a person. Why did she choose to let the people of Long Yuan country find a person for her? Si Xian's eyes were filled with admiration. Her gaze was slightly infatuated. I've never seen his face before. I only know that he wears a mask and is very powerful. If I were to talk about something special, it would be his excellent figure. Half a year ago, she had met that man in her father's study. From then on, he fell into the enemy's trap. In particular, even his powerful and noble father had to bow and scrape in front of him. Furthermore, his father had even tried to curry favor with him. From this, one could see how unfathomable this man was. But when she told her father about her love for him, her father sternly stopped her. Moreover, that man, Yan Ming, was not someone she could reach. How could she, who had always been proud and arrogant, be willing to let her first love be buried before it could even begin? Hence, she had left the spiritual door and went out to find out more about him. A bitter smile appeared on Gao Tu's face. Miss C, how am I supposed to find this person in this sea of people? Not to mention a portrait, he didn't even know the person's name. In such a vast sea of people, no matter how powerful he was, he couldn't find this person. Si Xian was silent for a while, then said, I remember my father once said that he didn't have a surname and that his name was Xiao. At that time, I didn't believe what he said. How could a person not have a surname? I'm not sure if this will be useful in your search. Furthermore, you must keep this a secret from me. Don't let anyone from the spiritual sect know about this. Chapter 114. Gao Tu fell silent. He knew what it would mean if he agreed to Si Xian's request. However, she had spoken in such a forceful manner that he could not refuse her. He could only reply helplessly, Don't worry, Lady Si. I will find this man for you no matter what. Hearing this, Si Xian rose to her feet in satisfaction. Her eyes were filled with a smile. Gao Tu, you should know what's good for you. I'll leave this task to you. If you can't complete this task, don't blame me for being heartless. Even though the woman had a gentle smile on her face, Gao Tu could feel a bone-piercing chill in her voice. He could not help but shiver as he replied respectfully, Miss C, you don't have to worry about my work. Even if I have to use up the entire army of Long Yuan country, I will find this man for you. All right, I'll wait for your good news. The smile on Si Xian's face grew even more pronounced. She glanced at Gao Tu once more before she turned around and walked out. Gao Tu's smile slowly disappeared as he stared in the direction that Si Xian had left. His deep-set eyes were now filled with an icy coldness. He clenched his fists unwillingly and his breathing became labored. He secretly swore in his heart, One day, I will overthrow the spirit order and never allow myself to be controlled by anyone again. Even though Gao Tu was the emperor of Long Yuan country, he was only a puppet emperor. He still had a powerful organization like the spirit order behind him. His every word and action was under the supervision of the spirit order. Furthermore, he had to report to the spirit order every month. It could be said that there was no point in being an emperor at all. Hence, as a proud and arrogant person, how could he be willing to submit to someone else forever? As long as he was given the chance, he would overthrow the spirit order's rule and trample them under his feet. No one could control him. In a luxurious private room at the Phoenix Feather Restaurant, Ning Exen rested her hands on her cheeks as she blinked her large, bright eyes at the peerless beauty sitting in front of her. Her clear eyes were filled with curiosity. Why are you staring at me? Yun Luofeng put down the chopsticks in his hand and raised an eyebrow at Ning Exen as he asked. Ning Exen's pretty face lit up with a smile. My grandfather has asked me to stay here and learn from you. So, I've been observing you. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed with an evil smile as he asked in a mocking tone, Then what did you learn? Ning Exen shook her head. Feng, actually, I have long heard of the existence of your Yun family. It is said that 10 years ago, the Yun family produced a Yun Xianxia with outstanding talent and a moving demeanor. However, because he was in the limelight, he offended the young master of a certain power, causing him to be chased and intercepted by that power, and he even died in this world. As she said this, Ning Exen's eyes shone brightly. Her face was full of longing. What a pity! If I had been born 10 years earlier, I might have been able to witness his glory. Hence, when I heard that you were the granddaughter of the general, I had a very good impression of you. His niece would not be inferior to him. Yun Luofeng raised his head to look at Ning Exen in surprise. When he saw the light in the young girl's eyes, he was slightly surprised. Ning Exen was an admirer of second uncle? If she knew that second uncle was still alive, I wonder what kind of expression she would make. Just then, a clamor sounded from outside the door. The voice was arrogant and domineering. I know that Yun Luofeng is in this private room. I'm going in to settle the score with him now. Chapter 115. Find her to settle accounts? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows, his fingers gently playing with the chopsticks in his hand, and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, It seems that the people who want to die have come again. These noble children really don't let me have peace. As he spoke, the door of the private room was suddenly smashed open with a bang. With a man in a green robe as the leader, a group of people rushed in from outside the door. In an instant, The originally quiet private room was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. The entire private room was filled with an unpleasant stench of sweat. Ning Xian wrinkled her delicate eyebrows, her eyes clearly containing a touch of disgust. Her face no longer had the softness she had when she first met Yun Luofeng, coldly sweeping the people who appeared in the box. Yun Luofeng, I thought you would hide in the Yun family for a lifetime. The man in the green robe raised his head and said arrogantly, half a year ago, you caused Wu Shuang to be slapped so many times by the crown prince. I have long wanted to settle this account with you. Unfortunately, you hid in the general's mansion for half a year. Now that you finally couldn't bear it anymore, it's time for us to put an end to this matter. The man in front of her was impressively Wu Qi, Mu Wushuang's little follower. When she first met Mu Wushuang in the medical pavilion, this Wu Qi was at Mu Wushuang's side, and for Mu Wushuang's sake, he always blamed her. She didn't expect his patience to be so strong. She had been practicing in the back mountain for half a year, but he actually stayed outside the general's mansion for half a year. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chased her here as soon as she left the general's mansion. The person who slapped Mu Wushuang is the crown prince. You seem to have found the wrong person. Yun Luofeng slightly raised the corner of her lips, her black eyes with an evil smile turned to Wu Qi. Her voice seemed to have a kind of magical power, causing people's hearts to involuntarily tremble. Wu Qi's heart shook, but he quickly recovered. He coldly said, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince is just being used by you. Yun Luofeng, I know you hate Wu Shuang to the bone. But why don't you think about it? Who do you think you are? Miss Wu Shuang's temper is good, she doesn't care about you, but I can't stand it. The man's words did not make Yun Luofeng angry. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. The smile on her lips became more and more evil. She chuckled and said two words, continue. Wu Qi snorted coldly, and his mocking gaze fell on Yun Luofeng. Don't think that I don't know that the old man you met by the Qin River that day was clearly faking his illness. The purpose was to frame Miss Wu Shuang. How could a good-for-nothing like you have medical skills? You only want to attack her because you know that Miss Wu Shuang is good at medicine. Miss Wu Shuang is too kind to believe you so easily. In the past 6 months, many people had gone to the general's mansion to seek medical treatment, but they were all stopped at the door. As time passed, the people of Long Yuan country couldn't help but suspect what had happened. From their point of view, if Yun Luofeng really had medical skills, she wouldn't have been so indifferent when faced with so many people begging for help. It was obvious that she was just pretending to be knowledgeable. Bang! Suddenly, a jade-like hand flipped over the table. Ning Xian picked up a porcelain plate and swung it at Wu Qi, who was still standing at the entrance of the private room. The porcelain plate slammed into Wu Qi's face, and the leftover soup splattered all over his face. The originally delicious soup had flowed into his mouth, making his stomach feel very uncomfortable. An unprecedented anger welled up in his heart, and Wu Qi wiped the leftover soup off his face. His eyes were spitting fire as he glared at the beautiful young lady who had just stood up. He roared angrily, "Stupid girl, as a servant, you actually have the guts to lay your hands on this young master. Men, snatch this servant girl back for this young master to serve him." Although Ning Xian was beautiful and had a dignified demeanor, Wu Qi had never seen her among the many young ladies of Long Yuan country. In addition, he had seen Ning Xian busying herself in and out of the general's mansion for the past 6 months, so he naturally treated her as a doted servant girl. Chapter 116. A sense of anger flashed in Ning Xian's eyes as she stared at the reckless Wu Qi. "What did you say? Are you saying that I'm a servant girl who serves others?" She was the dignified eldest lady of the Ning family, yet she had been reduced to a servant girl in these people's mouths? In particular, Wu Qi's wretched manner of asking her to serve him made her want to step on his head. "That's right." Wu Qi glanced arrogantly at Ning Xian as if he was giving her charity. "Little girl, you won't have much of a future with the Yun family. Once the old man passes away, you'll be auctioned off to a brothel. Instead of serving so many men in a brothel, why don't you serve me instead? I'll make sure you fuck me." Ning Xian was enraged. Her beautiful face was flushed with anger. Then, without any hesitation, she walked towards Wu Qi and aimed a kick at his crotch. "Arg!" A heart-wrenching voice resounded throughout the entire restaurant. Wuxia curled up in pain. His face turned green and his handsome features twisted. He roared with malevolence, "Damned girl, how dare you touch me? Men, tie this damned girl up and send her to my bed." "Yes, young master." When the servants saw that their young master was being bullied, they stepped forward to grab Xianxia's arm. However, the young girl's arm was as slippery as an earthworm and slipped through their grasp without leaving a trace. Bang! Xianxia evaded the servant's demonic claws. She then extended her slender leg and kicked Wuxia again, sending him flying out of the room. Wuxia was thrown out of the private room and landed in the corridor. He was in so much pain that he was drenched in sweat, but he could not say a word. There were many passers-by in the restaurant. They pointed at Wuxia, who was lying on the floor, and whispered to each other. "Did you just say that you want me to serve you?" Xianxia stepped hard on Wuxia's chest and raised her eyebrows slightly, asking, "Are you satisfied with my service now? You dared to hurt me. The Wu family will never let you and Yun Luofeng get away with it." Wuxia gritted his teeth and his voice trembled. Indeed, the kind of master, the kind of servant girl. Neither of these two women were good people. She didn't have Miss Wuxuang's elegance at all. "Wu family?" Xianxia sneered and said indifferently, "What can the Wu family do to me if I cripple you? I'm warning you, stay away from the Yun family. If you dare to cause trouble again, it won't be as simple as crippling you." After saying that, Xianxia's foot gradually moved from Wuxia's chest to his crotch, and then stomped down hard. The howl of a pig being slaughtered reverberated throughout the entire restaurant. Everyone couldn't help but shiver when they saw the pool of blood on Wuxia's crotch. They knew that Wuxia was completely crippled this time. He probably didn't even have the ability to carry on the family line. When Xianxia was done with the Wu family, she turned around and walked into the private room. At this moment, Yun Luofeng was leaning back on the wooden chair and holding the back of his head lazily. The corners of his lips were curled into a demonic smile and his black eyes were filled with a playful smile. It was as if he was watching a good show. I didn't expect that the young miss of the Ning family would be so domineering when she flips out. Xianxia's little face turned red. "I just can't stand the way these people treat you." "But, Xiaofeng, I haven't caused any trouble for you, have I?" Yun Luofeng raised an eyebrow. "The Wu family isn't much of a problem. Besides, I've been in hiding for so long. It's time for people to know that the Yun family isn't to be trifled with." Chapter 117. So what if they were royalty? Those who offended the Yun family would be punished. The Wu family. A furious roar resounded throughout the entire courtyard, as if it was filled with monstrous hatred and was burning fiercely in this raging fire. "Yun Luofeng, if I don't kill you, I am not human." Wuxia lay on the carved wooden bed, his blood staining the blanket beneath him red. He clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. The hatred in his eyes grew stronger and stronger, like a dagger dipped in poison. Just one look was enough to make one feel as if they had been poisoned. "Cheer!" Wu Ran lowered his eyes. He looked at his son's pitiful state and a murderous glint flashed across his eyes. "Don't worry, I will seek justice for you. Now, I will enter the palace to see the emperor. The Yun family's little servant girl has done such a thing. No matter how shameless that old man Yun Luo is, he must hand over Yun Luofeng and his little servant girl." Wuxia gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with hatred. "Father, when the time comes, hand Yun Luofeng and the little servant girl over to me. I want to let them experience what it means to live a life worse than death." If he did not torture them, he would not be able to vent his hatred. Especially that little servant girl. As a servant girl, she had dared to attack him. She was seeking death. This time, even Yun Luo would not be able to protect them. "Men, prepare the palanquin. I need to enter the palace to see the emperor." Wu Ran's eyes were cold and his murderous intent intensified. So what if old man Yun Luo was strong? His granddaughter had done such a heinous thing. How could he be so unreasonable as to side with her? Even if he wanted to protect her, the emperor would not let him do as he wished. Having reached this point in his train of thought, he turned to look at the young man lying on the bed. His voice warm, he said, "Wait here for your father's good news. In a moment, I will bring Yun Luofeng and his maidservant back." If old man Ning was here and heard these people addressing Ning Xian as a maidservant, even someone as calm as him would fly into a rage. He might even kill all of them in a fit of rage. How noble was Elder Ning's granddaughter. Even the princess of the royal family could not compare to her. In the entire Long Yuan country, the only person he acknowledged was Yun Luofeng. Unfortunately, the Wu family was too arrogant and did not thoroughly investigate Ning Xian's identity. This led to an irreparable mistake: the Yun family's main hall. As soon as the girl stepped over the threshold, she saw the old man sitting upright. She slightly raised the corner of her lips and walked into the hall. The old master glanced at the young girl who had appeared in the hall and snorted coldly. "You little girl. First, you went into seclusion in the back mountain for half a year. In the end, as soon as you left the back mountain, you went out to fool around. Don't you know how to spend more time with your grandfather?" The old man's voice was clearly filled with resentment. Clearly, he was dissatisfied with Yun Luofeng's neglect over the past half a year. Yun Luofeng was taken aback. She had thought that what she and Ning Xian had done had reached this old man's ears, and he was planning to punish them. She hadn't expected him to come for this. "Am I not busy?" Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders. "Moreover, am I not back to accompany you now?" "Humph." The old man snorted coldly and said resentfully, "I don't know what you're busy with." "Oh yes, you mentioned that you were going to give me 2 surprises. Where are they? Why haven't I seen them?" Yun Luofeng blinked. "I can't give you these 2 surprises yet. However, there will be another surprise coming soon. You should prepare yourself first." "What?" "Nothing much. Ning Xian and I just crippled Wuxia from the Wu family. I wanted you to be mentally prepared. I reckon that the people who will punish us will be here soon." Chapter 118. "What?" When he asked the first question, the old man's tone was the same as usual. However, this time he was so shocked that he jumped up. His eyes widened and he blurted out angrily, "What did you just say? You crippled the boy from the Wu family?" The Wu family was one of the 4 great families in Long Yuan country. The ancestor of the Wu family was once Duke Wu of Long Yuan country. Even though the Wu family was no longer what it used to be, it was still a hereditary title. The mistress of the Wu family was also a 2nd-grade royal ordained title. But his own granddaughter had actually crippled the only son of the Wu family? She even called this a surprise for him? He thought it was more like he was shocked. Actually, when I said crippled, I didn't mean to cripple Wuqi's abilities. I meant to make him lose his ability to carry on the family line. Yun Luofeng seemed to be afraid that the old man would misunderstand and explained once again. The old man almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This girl had made Wuqi lose his ability to carry on the family line. Didn't that mean that the Wu family would be without descendants? Wouldn't that boy from the Wu family come after him? Although the old man was not afraid of the Wu family's master, if this matter were to be reported to the royal family, whether it was that dog Mu Xingqiu or the dog emperor, they would not let go of this opportunity to target the Yun family. "You little girl, if you had only beaten Wuqi up, I could still argue back. After all, Wuqi was in the wrong. But you've actually made him lose his ability to carry on the family line." Yun Luofeng smiled helplessly. "I'm afraid that this matter will be difficult to resolve." Yun Luofeng raised an eyebrow and yawned lazily. Ning Xian was the one who crippled him. Of course, even if she hadn't done so, I would have crippled him. Sigh. The old man glared at Yun Luofeng and said unhappily, "Do you feel uncomfortable every day that you don't cause trouble for me? Go back to the back of the mountain and reflect on your mistakes. Without my orders, you're not allowed to take a step out." Yun Luofeng's lips curled into an arc as she looked at the old man in front of her. How could she not know the old man's intentions? This old man wanted her to hide and not appear in front of anyone unless something happened. As for the Wu family, he would handle it. But how could Yun Luofeng become a coward after causing trouble? If that was the case, she would look down on herself. "I know you don't want me to face those people, but Ning Xian and I caused this mess. I should be the one to face it. Grandpa, you're getting on in years. You should enjoy your remaining years." You shouldn't worry about these things. Yun Luo was mildly stunned. He looked at the young girl standing in front of him. At this moment he finally realized that his granddaughter had grown up and had become more responsible. She wasn't a young girl who only knew how to hide behind her family for protection after causing trouble. The imperial edict has arrived. A sharp voice pierced through the horizon and came from outside the courtyard. The imperial edict has arrived. Yun Luofeng accepts the edict. Yun Luo's heart, which had just calmed down, tensed up once more following this sharp voice. His brows knitted tightly together. Feng, no matter what happens later, don't say anything. This time, even if I have to throw away my face, I will protect your safety. No one can take my granddaughter away from me. At this moment, Yun Luo's gaze was sharp and his expression was dignified. He was like an awe-inspiring general on the battlefield. Under the autumn wind, the eunuch held a bright yellow imperial edict in his hand as he stood in the front courtyard. He stared coldly at the grandfather and granddaughter who had just walked out of the main hall. A hint of impatience flashed across his eyes. Chapter 119. Yun Luofeng, His Imperial Majesty has ordered you to bring your servant girl to the palace to see His Imperial Majesty. You must leave immediately and do not stop. The eunuch's voice was as sharp as a needle as he coldly ordered. Servant girl? Master Dongfang turned his puzzled gaze towards Yun Luofeng and furrowed his brows. What did your servant girl do? Why did he order you to bring your servant girl to see His Imperial Majesty? Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders. The servant girl he was talking about is Ning Exin. Ning Exin? Servant girl? Master Dongfang was completely dumbfounded. A member of the imperial family had actually called Ning Exin a servant girl? Even though he still does not know Ning Exin's identity, he could tell from Elder Rong's attitude towards Elder Ning. Yet these people had actually called her a servant girl? Where did they get their sense of superiority to treat such a dignified and beautiful young girl as a servant girl? Yun Luofeng, what are you standing there for? Come with me to see His Imperial Majesty. The eunuch said coldly when he saw that Yun Luofeng was unmoved. Master Dongfang's face sank. Since the Emperor has ordered you to go, I will accompany you. With me here, I'd like to see who can do anything to you. Hearing Yun Luofeng's words, the eunuch's face filled with obvious disdain. Everything under the heavens was yellow soil. Yun Luofeng was only a general with an empty title. What right did he have to go against His Imperial Majesty? Yun Luofeng and her servant girl had committed such a cruel act. His Imperial Majesty would not forgive her so easily. I'll go with you. Suddenly, a low, hoarse voice sounded from behind her. Hearing the man's voice, Yun Luofeng slowly turned around and her gaze fell upon the man. The man's eyes were cold and grim as his dark eyes stared deeply at her. His paralyzed face showed no expression, but at this moment, Yun Luofeng could feel the worry in his heart. All right. She curled the corners of her lips into a demonic smile. Her voice was as languid as ever, but it undoubtedly revealed her trust in the man. Based on Yun Luofeng's current abilities, she did not fear the imperial family. But without a doubt, if Yun Xiao followed her, she would feel very safe. Wait for me. At this moment, a crisp voice sounded from the side. Yun Luofeng turned around and saw Ning Exin quickly running towards her. Her pretty features carried a gentle smile as she said, Xiao Feng, I was the one who started this. I'll go with you and meet this so-called emperor. I'll also take a look at how the members of the imperial family are going to bully you. Undeniably, Yun Luofeng now held a very important place in Ning Exin's heart, second only to her most respected grandfather. Hence, she would not allow anyone to bully Yun Luofeng, especially in front of Ning Exin. What are you? When the eunuch saw that Ning Exin was looking down on the royal family, he flew into a rage. How dare you disrespect His Majesty? It's true that the dog is shaped by its master. Ning Exin could not be bothered to argue with him and only glanced at him indifferently. She then turned towards Yun Luofeng. Initially, I had wanted to wait for my grandfather to return and let him handle this matter. I never thought that the members of the imperial family would come knocking on our door so soon. Xiaofeng, don't worry, when my grandfather left, I promised him that I would protect you. When the eunuch saw that Ning Xen was ignoring him, his expression turned even uglier. "What are you still blabbering about? His Imperial Majesty is already waiting for you in the palace. Are you going to take responsibility for any delays? If you don't leave, I'll have you all tied up." Chapter 120. Yun Luofeng finally reacted to the eunuch's words. Her black eyes glanced devilishly at him, and her peerlessly beautiful face lifted into a demonic and languid smile. However, this lazy glance caused the eunuch's body to tremble involuntarily, as if a bone-piercing chill had spread from his heart. This trash could actually make people feel such intense fear? Perhaps it was to calm the panic in his heart, but the eunuch's expression turned cold and he ordered icily, "Guards, bring these people into the palace. I can walk by myself." Yun Luofeng glanced at the guard who was walking towards her and raised his brows. "Yun Xiao, if anyone dares to touch me, kill without mercy." Her voice was arrogant and unruly, filled with an evil and awe-inspiring aura, and it carried a domineering aura that looked down on the people of the world. Yun Xiao did not say anything, silently standing by Yun Luofeng's side. Killing intent flashed in his cold black eyes, and his black robes fluttered despite the lack of wind. The powerful aura radiating from his body forced the guards, who wanted to approach Yun Luofeng, to take a few steps back as shock filled their faces. "Humph." The eunuch humphed. "Yun Luofeng, wait until we reach the imperial palace. Let's see if you still dare to be so insolent. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances." This eunuch wasn't stupid. It was impossible for him not to feel the killing intent from Yun Zhao's body. If they really touched Yun Luofeng, he believed that this man would definitely start a massacre. Sure enough, there wasn't a single good person in the general's estate. From General Yun to the servant girls and guards, they were all a group of people who despised the imperial power. People like them should all be killed. "Grandfather, let's enter the palace and see how the emperor handles this matter." Yun Luofeng lowered his eyes and smiled faintly. The smile on his lips was filled with evil. "All right." Yun Luo nodded and turned to look at the eunuch, saying coldly, "Why aren't you leading the way? Who will be responsible for any delays?" These words had come from the eunuch's mouth, but now the old man had returned them to him. The eunuch snorted coldly again. He flicked the horsetail whisk in his hand and walked out of the courtyard. At this moment, the general's mansion was surrounded so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. When these people saw the group of people walking out of the general's mansion surrounded by a group of guards, they started to discuss among themselves. Obviously, they were all trying to guess what crime General Yun Luo had committed to be forced into the palace by a group of guards. Wasn't that right? Although these guards did not touch the Yun family members again, their actions of surrounding the Yun family members was no different from escorting them into the palace. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Yun family had committed a crime. Amidst the noisy crowd, Xianxia stared at Yun Luofeng, who was surrounded by a group of guards. She was slightly stunned. After regaining her senses, she quickly turned around and hurried in the direction of the medical pavilion. "Elder Rong, something bad has happened." In the inner hall of the medical pavilion, Elder Rong, who was playing chess with someone, was thinking about how to move his chess piece when the sudden voice startled him. The chess piece in his hand fell to the ground. Just as Elder Rong was frowning impatiently, Xianxia suddenly pushed the door open and hurriedly walked in. Perhaps it was because she had run all the way here, but her breathing was not smooth and her enchanting eyes were filled with anxiety. "What happened?" Elder Rong's frown deepened as he asked in irritation. If it were not for the fact that he had a good relationship with Elder Fong, someone as irritable as him would never have tolerated anyone barging in while he was playing chess. This was simply ruining his good mood. "Elder Rong, something has happened." Xianxia looked anxious. "Just now, I remembered that the spirit gathering elixir in our medical pavilion was almost sold out, so I went to the Yun family to look for Yun Luofeng, hoping to buy some more elixir from her. Who would have thought that I would see the Imperial Palace escorting her and General Yun into the Imperial Palace? Elder Rong, if you had been late, I don't think you would ever see her again." Chapter 121. "What?" Elder Rong slammed the table angrily and stood up. He glared at Xianxia, who had reported the news, and asked through gritted teeth, "What did you just say?" Have the imperial family eaten a bear's heart and leopard's gall to dare capture Yunlas? Fangya wiped the sweat from her brow as her enchanting features filled with anxiety. Elder Rong, I saw it with my own eyes. Not only has Lady Yun been taken away by him, even Ning Xian of the Ning family has been brought into the imperial palace by the imperial family. Hearing this, the anger in Elder Rong's eyes gradually subsided. Instead, a strange look appeared on his face. You said that the imperial family has kidnapped Ning Xian? Yes, Elder Rong. Fangya reported respectfully. Elder Rong slowly sat down and his lips curled into a disdainful angle. He then said disdainfully, Is the imperial family looking for their own death? Fangya, I remember that Elder Ning will be rushing to Long Yuan country today. Wait for him outside the city gates and tell him that his granddaughter and goddaughter have been kidnapped by the Dog Emperor and they are waiting for him to save them. Fangya joined her fists and her enchanting eyes flashed with a cold light. The imperial family could have kidnapped anyone. Why did they have to kidnap Yun Luofeng? Yun Luofeng was not only a benefactor to the medical court, she was also highly regarded by Elder Ning. Why would the Ning family let the imperial family off if they had kidnapped her? That's not right. Elder Rong suddenly remembered something and rose to his feet. He frowned. If that's the case, wouldn't I be giving Elder Ning the chance to curry favor with the Yun girl? No, I can't let Elder Ning have the upper hand in this matter. I must make a trip to the imperial palace. The main hall of the imperial palace was magnificent and majestic. At this moment, in the middle of the hall, Wu Ran was staring hatefully at the Yun family granddaughter and granddaughter. The murderous intent in his eyes was thick and sharp like a sword. The officials stood on both sides of the hall, not even daring to breathe as they glanced cautiously at the emperor, Gao Tu, who was sitting high up on the throne. Gao Tu's face was ashen as he stared coldly at Yun Luofeng who was standing in the middle of the hall. He spoke in a stern voice, Yun Luofeng, why don't you kneel when you see me? Yun Luofeng curled his lips. My father had once asked for an imperial edict from you. The imperial edict stated that I do not need to kneel when I see anyone from the imperial family. Don't tell me you want to take back your order? Only now did Gao Tu recall the decree he had agreed to that day, and his expression couldn't help but turn even uglier. How dare you? Imperial concubine Mu was sitting next to Gao Tuesday. After hearing Yun Luofeng's words, her beautiful face immediately changed. Her lily-white hand fell on the table and she angrily shouted, Who allowed you to be so rude in the main hall? Your decree was given by His Majesty, so you can naturally take it back. Yun Luofeng glanced at Imperial concubine Mu with a smile that wasn't a smile. If the Emperor intends to take back this edict, I, Yun Luofeng, have nothing to say. But if this reaches the ears of the common people, it will become His Majesty going back on his word. The reputation of the imperial palace will be swept 1,000 feet. Gao Tu's expression was somewhat impatient. He glanced at Imperial concubine Mu and stopped her from speaking with his eyes. Then his gaze fell upon Yun Xiao and Ning Xian who were standing next to Yun Luofeng. He said in a cold voice, We can allow you to not kneel and pay your respects. However, you guards and maids are far too lacking in etiquette. You actually dare to stand in the Great Hall. Kneel before us. His voice was dignified and domineering. It was filled with a chilly chill as it slowly rang out in the Great Hall. Yun Xiao did not speak. His grim face looked as if he had been paralyzed from the beginning to the end. His dark eyes were forever fixated on the young girl standing next to him. It was as if he had not heard Gao Tu's voice and completely ignored him. Chapter 122. You don't have the right to make them kneel. In this quiet hall, the girl's demonic and awe-inspiring voice was like a stone thrown into the calm surface of a lake, stirring up waves. Gao Tu's face was ashen. With a bang, he fiercely slammed his fist on the table and angrily shouted, Impudent! General Yun, this is the good granddaughter you've raised. He turned to look at Yun Luo with an ashen face. His voice was stern and cold. Not only did you not discipline your granddaughter properly, you've caused her to become arrogant and willful by nature. She's lawless and out of control. Even her maidservant is a dog that relies on her master's power. She's actually crippled Wuxia. Now that Master Wu has come knocking on our doors, the general's household must give an explanation. Explanation? Yun Luo laughed icily and rose to his feet. His elderly features were cold and stern. Your Imperial Majesty, what kind of explanation do you want the general's household to give? Wu Qi had insulted my granddaughter and taken liberties with Ning Exin. He was delusional enough to snatch Ning Exin back to the Wu family as a concubine. Isn't he reaping what he sowed by being crippled? Gao Tu's face sank and he scoffed icily. General Yun, no matter how many wrongs Wu Qi has committed, the general's household should not have crippled him. Besides, the Ning Exin that you speak of is only a little maidservant. As a maidservant, she has the right to be someone else's concubine. As the heir of the Wu family, Wu Qi would never humiliate her. Hearing that Gao Tu had called Ning Exin a little maidservant just like the Wu family, Yun Luo's elderly features lit up with a mocking smile. General Yun, as a meritorious minister of Long Yuan country, we do not wish to punish you. Gao Tu clearly did not see the mocking smile on Yun Luo's face. He calmed the anger in his heart and continued, so, you don't have to worry about this matter. We will now issue an imperial decree to betroth this little maidservant to Wu Qi. Then, you can ask your Yun Luo Feng to apologize to Wu Qi. We will make the decision and let the Wu family forget about this matter. What do you think? To Gao Tu, this was the best way to resolve this matter. She was only a little maidservant anyway. If the general's household needed her, he could send a palace maid to serve her. As for Yun Luofeng, after all, she wasn't the one who did it. As long as he admitted his mistake, everything else could be discussed. A look of anger flashed across Ning Exin's face. This dog of an emperor had actually betrothed her to a scum? Moreover, she was going to be the concubine of this scum? More importantly, he actually said that becoming this scum's concubine wasn't a disgrace to her? He really thought too highly of himself. Just as Ning Exin was about to fly into a rage, a chuckle came from beside her. The young girl raised her eyebrows slightly, her demeanor was languid and demonic. The corners of her lips curled into an arc, and her peerlessly beautiful face lit up with a soul-stirring smile. I don't know where your sense of superiority comes from. You can casually choose a marriage? Or do you think that because you are the emperor, all the power in the world is in your hands? But don't forget that there's always someone better than you out there. Not everyone is afraid of imperial power. Yun Luofeng's words were tantamount to declaring war against the royal family. As such, all the ministers were shocked silly by her. They stared at the young girl's beautiful face with their mouths agape. Yun Luofeng, how dare you? Imperial concubine Mu's lily-white hand slammed heavily on the table. A sense of disdain flashed across her arrogant eyes as she exclaimed disdainfully, "Everything under the heavens is dirt. If your Imperial Majesty wishes to bestow a marriage, who would dare to disobey? She's only a little maidservant. Could it be that someone of Wu Qi's status isn't worthy enough to take her as a concubine?" Chapter 123. Based on Imperial concubine Mu's status, she would naturally not be privy to the secrets of the mainland. In the eyes of these commoners, the imperial family is a supreme existence. In their own words, everything under the heavens belongs to the imperial family. However, only those with real power would understand that above the imperial family, there is a powerful controller. At the end of the day, the imperial family is only a puppet of that organization. Hence, when he heard Imperial concubine Mu's words, Gao Tu's expression did not look too good. However, he only shot Imperial concubine Mu a warning glance before turning to face the crowd in the middle of the hall. Yun Luofeng, seeing that you are the only child of the general's household, we will not pursue your crime of disregarding the law. Now that your servant girl has committed a heinous crime, marrying her to Wu Qi as a concubine is already the most lenient punishment. Gao Tu raised his chin slightly, his dignified tone of voice leaving no room for doubt. Hee. Suddenly, a light chuckle pierced through the air and sounded from outside the hall, carrying a hint of mockery. This emperor is truly awe-inspiring, choosing anyone's marriage as he pleases? Do you really think that you can make decisions on this mainland? As soon as he finished speaking, a green-robed old man slowly walked in from outside the main hall. His steps were light and quick. You could only see him take 2 steps, but his whole body was already in front of you. He was like a wisp of green smoke, so fast that it was impossible to see him. Grandfather! A sense of joy flashed in Ning Xian's eyes when she saw Elder Ning. She then walked towards the old man as a gentle smile appeared on her pretty and dignified features. Grandfather, you're here? Xin. Elder Ning stroked Ning Xian's head, his eyes filled with affection. Tell grandfather, did anyone bully you while I was away? As he spoke, his eyes swept towards Gao Tu, who was seated high up in the hall as if he was implying something. Grandfather, Ning Xian's face filled with grievance when she heard this. I've heard that Lin Feng's days in Long Yuan country have not been easy. I thought that it was an exaggeration, but today, when Lin Feng and I went to a restaurant for a meal, Wuxia from the Wu family barged in and tried to make a move on Lin Feng. What do you mean by an exaggeration? Not only the Wu family would do such a thing, she could also exaggerate the severity of the situation. Sure enough, Elder Ning's expression sank, and his old face was overcast like the eve of a storm. After that, I couldn't stand the sight of those silk pants, so I made a move on them. Who could have guessed that Wuxia would try to take me back and make me serve him? Ning Xian gritted her teeth and deliberately emphasized the word, serve. Her clear eyes were filled with rage. Of course. How could I be willing to be taken advantage of by him? So, I crippled him. You saw what happened next. The emperor wanted to take revenge for the Wu family. He captured me and Lin Feng into the palace, intending to force me to marry that scum. He even said that I'm only fit to be his concubine. The more Ning Xian spoke, the more aggrieved she felt. She had been by her grandfather's side since she was a child. Everyone treated her with respect. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? But Gao Tu, not only did he force her to become a concubine, he even said that she was only fit to be his concubine. Elder Ning snorted coldly as a cold light flashed across his indifferent eyes. Grandpa has told you long ago that you don't need to show mercy to your enemies. How is it enough to deal with that kind of scum by crippling him? You should make him lose an arm or a leg and never be able to stand again for the rest of his life. Grandfather's teachings are right, I'll remember it. Ning Xian winked mischievously and replied with a smile. The grandfather and granddaughter's conversation, as if there was no one else present, had completely infuriated Wu Ran. His eyes glared at Ning Xian, as if he wanted to execute her by 1,000 cuts. Chapter 124. How dare you? How dare you trespass into the imperial palace? You're obviously digging your own grave. Wu Ran then turned towards Gao Tu and fell to his knees with a loud thud. He cried bitterly, Your Imperial Majesty, you must uphold justice for me. This little servant girl and this old man are looking down on the Wu family. They obviously don't respect your Imperial Majesty. This pair of grandfather and granddaughter should be executed by 1,000 cuts and their 9 generations should be executed. Execute my 9 generations? Elder Ning smiled calmly and replied calmly, I'm afraid that you can't afford to execute my 9 generations. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned his gaze towards Gao Tu and stood with his hands behind his back, looking indifferent. Even the people from the spirit sect didn't dare to say that they would kill their entire family in front of me. I don't know where the royal family gets their arrogance from to be so rude to me. You even call my granddaughter a servant girl? You even call her a concubine? Gao Tu's face, which was originally filled with anger, turned pale with a swoosh after hearing the old man's words. His eyes were filled with fear. Spiritual sect? He actually knows about the spiritual sect. Where did this old man come from? Spiritual sect? What's that? Imperial concubine Mu obviously did not know about the existence of the spiritual sect. She laughed icily and said, Do you think that the spiritual sect can be compared to the imperial family? The entire Long Yuan country belongs to the imperial family. Who would dare to disobey the imperial family's orders? Slap. Just as imperial concubine Mu had finished speaking, a slap suddenly came from the side and landed fiercely on her cheek. She was dumbfounded and turned her head in disbelief towards the angry, handsome man next to her. Your Imperial Majesty. Imperial concubine Mu's beautiful eyes widened and filled with tears. Her beautiful face was deathly pale. On a normal day, she had relied on Gao Tu's pampering to become arrogant. From the fact that she was allowed to participate in politics, one could see her position in Gao Tu's heart. However, she never thought that the imperial majesty, who had always pampered her, would slap her. Gao Tu looked at the tears in imperial concubine Mu's eyes. He couldn't bear it, but when he thought of what she had just said, his anger rose again. He coldly said, "The harem is not allowed to participate in politics. This matter will be handled by us. You are not allowed to speak anymore." Imperial concubine Mu's body shook, and her beautiful eyes looked at Gao Tu in astonishment. Her eyes were filled with heartbreak and despair. Did His Majesty intend to take back all her power? Not to mention Imperial concubine Mu, even the people in the main hall were dumbfounded. They didn't understand why His Majesty would suddenly make a move. Is it possible that the Mu Jia will lose her favor? Just as everyone was feeling puzzled, Gao Tu had already turned his gaze towards Elder Ning. His expression was no longer as dignified as before, and there was a hint of inquiry in his voice. "May I know who this old senior is?" Old senior? His Majesty actually used such a word for this old man? A bad feeling arose in Wu Ran's heart. Could it be that this little servant girl had some other background? From beginning to end, Yun Luofeng had the attitude of watching a show. His lips curled into a demonic smile as he looked at Wu Ran, whose expression had stiffened. "You don't have the right to know who I am." Elder Ning's tone of voice was as calm as ever, but it revealed the cold arrogance in his heart. Gao Tu's face turned ashen when he was humiliated by Elder Ning in front of so many people. But before he could ascertain Elder Ning's identity, he did not dare to act rashly. Hence, he suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "May I know what relationship this old senior has with the Yun family?" Chapter 125. At this moment, Gao Tu no longer dared to think that Ning Xian was just a servant girl. Just based on the fact that this old man could silently appear in the palace hall, this kind of strength was not something an ordinary person could achieve. Elder Ning ignored Gao Tu and turned his indifferent eyes to Yun Luofeng. He smiled faintly and said, "Little girl, I didn't want to intervene in the grudges between you and the others, but now they've really crossed the line. I asked Xianxia to stay here to protect your safety, but they actually humiliated you in front of Xianxia. Since that's the case, I can't just sit back and watch." Elder Ning's eyes swept across the people in the hall and the corners of his lips curled up. "Who's Mu Wuxuan? Come out." In the hall, everyone looked at each other and looked at Elder Ning in surprise. They didn't expect Elder Ning to look for Mu Wuxuan first. One must know that Mu Wuxuan was different from the others. Not only was she talented, her medical skills were also outstanding. Her understanding of medicine even surpassed her master, Jing Lin. Even if this old man's identity was not simple, he couldn't casually offend a doctor with a bright future. After all, everyone has a time when they are sick, right? At this time, the value of making friends with a doctor was obvious. Mu Wuxuan is probably in the Prime Minister's mansion now. Yun Luofeng laughed and raised his eyebrows at Gao Tuesday. "Your Majesty, Elder Ning wants to look for Mu Wuxuan. I wonder if you can summon Mu Wuxuan here?" Gao Tu's expression changed. He shot a warning look at Yun Luofeng, a sharp glint in his eyes. However, he quickly retracted his gaze and said to Elder Ning, "Old senior, since you know of Wuxuan's existence, you should also know what kind of person she is. Wuxuan is elegant and dignified. It's impossible for her to offend Yun Luofeng. Everything was Yun Luofeng's doing. I hope old senior doesn't believe others easily and misunderstand a good girl." Gao Tu's words were obviously biased towards Mu Wuxuan and pushed all the blame to Yun Luofeng. In his opinion, a peerless and outstanding woman like Wuxuan would not provoke Yun Luofeng. It was only because Yun Luofeng admired his son, Gao Ling, that he hated Mu Wuxuan. Hearing Gao Tu's words, Yun Luo's heart grew colder and colder. The last bit of affection he had for Long Yuan country disappeared. In this life, he has been on the battlefield, but he can't compare to the Mu family's daughter. No matter how great the contribution was, it was nothing in Gao Tu's eyes. How could such an emperor be worthy of his loyalty? Elder Ning faintly looked at Gao Tu and said in a cold voice, "I believe in my own judgment. tell Mu Wushuang to come see me immediately. Otherwise, this old man will absolutely not take things lying down today. Elder, Gao Tu took a deep breath, suppressing the anger that was about to erupt from his body. A cold smile flashed across his eyes. You are indeed very strong, but Wushuang's medical skills are very high. It can be said that in the whole of Long Yuan Nation, or even the other nations, there is no one who is more talented than her in the field of medicine. Jing Lin even asserted that her achievements in the future would not be below anyone else. Offending such a genius doctor, what benefits would there be for you? Elder Ning was stunned. His eyes were filled with astonishment, as if he was deeply shocked by Gao Tu's words. What shocked him was that with Mu Wushuang's medical talent, he actually said that no one can compare to him. And he even said that her achievements in the future would not be below anyone else? Should he say that these people were thinking too highly of themselves, or should he scold them as frogs at the bottom of a well? Chapter 126. Unfortunately, Elder Ning's shocked expression fell into the eyes of the others, and they thought that he was shocked by Gao Tu's words. Gao Tu's lips curled into a smile, and he continued, Senior, I don't know what your relationship with the general's mansion is, but Wushuang's talent is indeed good. I believe that after Senior sees this child, you will definitely like her. As for the general's mansion, I can forgive them for Senior's sake. What does Senior think? Of course, if Senior wants to be on good terms with Wushuang, I advise you not to get too close to the general's mansion. If it was in the past, Gao Tu would never say such words in front of the main hall. But now, he had completely fallen out with the general's mansion, so there was no need to continue pretending. Moreover, his royal family had the #1 expert, so there was no need to be afraid of the general's mansion. It was just that he wanted to use the name of the general's mansion to calm the crowd. Hee. Elder Ning regained his senses, and he indifferently looked at Yun Luofeng with a touch of gentleness in his eyes. Little girl, these people don't know that you have medical skills? They actually said that Mu Wushuang's medical talent is unparalleled? This is simply waving a big sword in front of Guan Yu. In front of you, they actually dare to flatter Mu Wushuang. I think Mu Wushuang can't even compare to 1/10 of you. Like 5 bolts of lightning striking their heads, everyone present was stunned by Elder Ning's words. Yun Luofeng has medical skills? How is this possible? She's just a waste, and this kind of waste actually has medical skills? Isn't this equivalent to a sow climbing a tree? Gao Tu's eyes looked at Yun Luofeng, then turned to look at Elder Ning and asked, Senior is also a doctor? This old man wants to learn medical skills, but unfortunately, I don't have the talent. How can I be compared to Mu Wushuang in your Long Yuan country? Elder Ning's face was indifferent, but everyone could hear the sarcasm in his tone. Gao Tu didn't mind his sarcastic tone, and said with a smile, Senior, since you're not a doctor, how do you know that Yun Luofeng's medical talent is better than Mu Wushuang's? Mu Wushuang's master, Jing Lin, is a highly respected doctor in our Long Yuan country. He has already seen that Mu Wushuang's talent is very strong. In this case, Mu Wushuang's achievements in the future will certainly be unparalleled. Elder Ning frowned as a sneer appeared on his indifferent face. As for Yun Luofeng, Gao Tu paused, then continued, she is indeed interested in medicine. Otherwise, she wouldn't have spent all of the general's mansion's savings to buy a bunch of useless herbs. However, it doesn't mean that she has the talent. Medical skills aren't that easy to learn. Some people won't be able to achieve much even if they spend their entire lives. The some people he mentioned were obviously referring to Yun Luofeng. Yun Luo looked at Gao Tu as though he was looking at an idiot. Even the master of the medical pavilion had come to seek treatment for his granddaughter. In the end, Gao Tu had actually claimed that his granddaughter would never achieve anything great in her lifetime? Are you guys done talking? Yun Luofeng lazily yawned, she shrugged her sore shoulders, and raised the corner of her lips. I'm a little tired. I've been standing for so long, and there's not even a chair. It seems that the royal family's hospitality is really not good. The two opposing sides quieted down due to Yun Luofeng's sudden interjection. Everyone's eyes fell on the girl, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. Chapter 127. At such a solemn time, she's actually complaining about the imperial family not giving her a seat? Does she not know that I'm the reason why these people are fighting? Elder Ning was also shocked and momentarily forgot what he was supposed to say. He stared blankly at Yun Luofeng. Only Yun Xiao did not think that Yun Luofeng had said anything wrong. In his opinion, the imperial family's way of treating their guests was not very good. They're not even willing to bring out a chair. Hence, Yun Xiao's black eyes slowly turned away from Yun Luofeng and his grim gaze turned towards imperial concubine Mu, who was seated high above. What do you want? Imperial concubine Mu saw Yun Xiao walking towards her and shivered. Her shrill voice rang out, "Quick! Quickly capture this man and protect the imperial concubine. Protect the imperial concubine, protect the imperial concubine." Gao Tu was also frightened by Yun Xiao's sudden action and anxiously shouted out his orders. However, just as Gao Tu's voice rang out, the grim man's figure moved like a gust of black wind and quickly appeared in front of imperial concubine Mu. His speed was so fast that no one could react in time. The guards did not even have time to draw their swords. Thud. The man did not make any unnecessary movements. He pulled imperial concubine Mu off the phoenix chair and threw her on the ground. He then bent down to pick up the phoenix chair and walked towards Yun Luofeng, who was in the middle of the main hall. When Yun Xiao placed the phoenix chair behind Yun Luofeng, the crowd suddenly stirred. They stared in shock at the man's grim and handsome features and were deeply awed by his domineering actions. This fellow had snatched the imperial concubine's phoenix chair just because of one sentence from Yun Luofeng? Where on earth had the general's mansion managed to recruit such a domineering and sincere man? He was simply the most outstanding lover in every woman's eyes. Especially when this man was so good-looking. Unfortunately, his status was too lowly and he was only a guard of the general's mansion. Otherwise, countless women would have gone crazy for him. This chair isn't comfortable, but I can't ask for too much here, so I'll have to make do with it. Yun Luofeng slowly sat down and the corners of her lips curled into a demonic smile. She looked at the crowd with a smile that did not reach her eyes and said, "All of you, continue." "Continue? Continue, you big watermelon. How are they supposed to continue their conversation after being interrupted by you?" Imperial concubine Mu felt very sullen. Her beautiful eyes glared hatefully at Yun Xiao, but because she had been slapped by Gao Tu, she did not dare to say another word. Of course, compared to imperial concubine Mu, Gao Tu was even more furious. Now, even a small guard dared to look down on the royal family? Especially in front of so many ministers? It is not hard to imagine that from now on, the prestige of the royal family will plummet and they will be laughed at by everyone. Elder, Gao Tu suppressed his anger and looked at Elder Ning once again. "I hope you can consider my words carefully. With Wu Shuang's future achievements, I believe everyone will only be able to curry favor with her, so don't offend her." If it wasn't for Jing Lin's assertion that Mu Wushuang's medical talent was unparalleled, how could he be so biased towards Mu Wushuang? It was even more impossible for her to become the crown prince's consort. And if Mu Wushuang was really that powerful, with her existence, Long Yuan country would be even more powerful. "Your Majesty!" A eunuch hurriedly walked in from outside the hall. He walked in front of Gao Tu, flicked his dust and respectfully said, "Reporting to your Majesty, Elder Rong from the medical court has come to visit." "Someone from the medical court has come?" Gao Tu's eyes lit up. Even though the medical court refused to treat Gao Ling, the relationship between the medical court and the royal family was not bad. If Elder Rong from the medical court came, this old man would not dare to be presumptuous again. Chapter 128. Quick, invite him in. Gao Tu sat upright, his face full of joy. He did not know what Elder Rong's arrival meant. After all, Jing Lin had suffered a great loss at the medical pavilion and did not have the face to tell the whole story. Otherwise, he would be the one who would be embarrassed. Therefore, Gao Tu had always thought that the medical pavilion did not treat Gao Ling because they were dissatisfied with Jing Lin for destroying the medical pavilion's finances and not because of the royal family. Just as he finished speaking, an old man in a white robe suddenly appeared under the scorching sun outside the main hall. This old man's white robe fluttered in the wind, and he had the demeanor of an expert. Gao Tu recognized the old man's identity at a glance. "Elder Rong." Gao Tu could no longer sit still. He stood up happily and a smile appeared on his handsome face. I don't know why you are here today. Even though Jing Lin has offended the medical pavilion, this has nothing to do with the royal family. I hope that Elder Rong can treat the crown prince. In Gao Tu's opinion, Elder Rong's appearance in the imperial palace must mean that he had forgiven Jing Lin for what he had done and intended to treat Gao Ling. He. Elder Ning sneered when he heard Gao Tu's words. Didn't you just say that Mu Wushuang's medical talent is unparalleled? Why don't you let Mu Wushuang treat him? Why do you need to ask someone else? As soon as Elder Rong walked into the main hall, he was stunned by Elder Ning's words before he could even say anything. Mu Wushuang's medical talent is unparalleled? If that's the case, what are the talented disciples of the medical pavilion? What's more, there's Yun Luofeng, a doctor who can't even be compared to the experts of the medical pavilion. How dare the royal family shamelessly say such words? It seems that he really came too late this time and missed a lot of things. Gao Tu's face was unhappy, but he did not dare to be angry at Elder Ning. He could only hold back his anger and said, Wushuang is talented but she is too young. There are many things that she doesn't know, so it's understandable that she can't treat him. Elder Rong's brows furrowed more and more. His gaze turned to the indifferent Elder Ning. Elder Ning, can you tell me what happened? Didn't I hear that Yun Luofeng and your little girl were captured by the royal family? How did it become something related to medicine? Could it be that the imperial family wanted to find Yun Las to treat her illness? That won't do. Not everyone has the qualifications to be treated by little Yun. Like a clap of thunder, it fiercely smashed into the crowd, causing them to tremble. Gao Tu, who had initially wanted to use Elder Rong's power to intimidate Elder Ning, was completely stunned. He stared in shock at the old man's furious face as his heart thundered and his body stiffened. What did Elder Rong mean? He came to the imperial palace for Yun Luofeng? And he dared to say that the imperial family had no right to be treated by Yun Luofeng? Could it be that Yun Luofeng really had medical skills? Gao Tu's face was completely pale. He did not react at all as he stared blankly at Elder Rong. His eyes were filled with shock. Elder Rong, you came at the right time, Elder Ning smiled. I heard that Mu Wushuang has been bullying Yun Las all these years and wanted to vent his anger for her. I didn't expect that the imperial family would say that Mu Wushuang's talent is superb and his medical skills are superb. His achievements in the future are not something that I can provoke. They also said that with Yun Las's talent, even if she used her entire life, she would not have any great achievements. I just want to ask, how have you been taking care of Yun Las for the past 6 months? Don't forget, Yun Las is the savior of your medical pavilion. Chapter 129. Elder Ning's words made Elder Rong feel ashamed. His heart was filled with guilt, but even more so was the rising anger in his heart. He snorted coldly and turned to look at Gao Tu, who was sitting high up on the throne. With a cold expression, he said, Gao Tu, what benefits did Mu Wushuang give you to make you so biased towards him? How dare he say that she has extraordinary talent? If she can be considered a genius, then Yun Luo can be described as an evildoer. Also, let me tell you something out of goodwill. My master was seriously ill and no one could cure him. It was this girl who cured him. How can Mu Wushuang compare to her? Gao Tu's body trembled, his face filled with shock. Yun Luofeng was really a famous doctor and had cured the illness that all the experts in the medical pavilion could do nothing about? How was this possible? He did not believe that this good-for-nothing would be able to make a comeback one day. Let me tell you something else. In this world, the only person who can cure jailing is Yun Luofeng. The corners of Elder Rong's lips curled up into a cold smile, completely ignoring the shock in Gao Tu's heart. At this moment, Wu Ran had already curled up in a corner. Her entire body was trembling as she tried to minimize her presence. Although everyone in the world believed that everything belonged to the emperor, there was only one person whom even the emperor would respect. That person was the old man from the medical pavilion. Especially when he said that Yun Luofeng was the medical pavilion's savior. With this relationship, he would not be able to get away with it today. Concubine Mu did not dare to complain. She bit her lip and glared at Yun Luofeng out of the corner of her eye. You're saying that Yun Luofeng can cure the crown prince? Gao Tu was taken aback. He hurriedly looked at Yun Luofeng, his eyes filled with anxiety. That's right. But based on the current situation, don't think that Yun Luofeng can cure jailing. Elder Rong smiled coldly. Also, did you not hear what Elder Ning said earlier? Immediately summon Mu Wushuang into the palace. I want the world to understand that the royal family is nothing. In the main hall, the ministers sighed endlessly. They were well aware of the status of the medical pavilion in the mainland. They also knew that even the royal family respected the medical pavilion. However, they did not expect that the royal family did not feel respect for the medical hall but fear. Right now, they were indeed like frogs at the bottom of a well. They only knew that the royal family was powerful, but they didn't know that there was an even more powerful existence above the royal family. Elder Rong, Gao Tu was a little hesitant. He frowned and said, even if Yun Luofeng has medical skills, that doesn't mean that her talent is greater than Wushuang's. Perhaps it was just a coincidence that she was able to cure the people from your medical pavilion. Wushuang's medical talent is recognized by many people. No matter what, Gao Tu was unwilling to believe that a piece of trash like him could have such influence. A bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well. Elder Rong glanced at Gao Tu disdainfully and said sarcastically, Mu Wushuang's talent should be what Jing Lin told you. Can that guy's words be trusted? He was merely bragging about himself. 100 Mu Wushuang couldn't even compare to 1 Yun Luofeng. I'll give you one more chance. If you don't summon Mu Wushuang and Jing Lin, I'll personally go to the Prime Minister's residence. At that time, I don't know what will happen to the Prime Minister's residence. Your Majesty! Imperial concubine Mu screamed. Her beautiful face was deathly pale and her nails dug deep into her palms. Your Majesty, Wushuang is innocent. It must be Yun Luofeng who framed her. Your Majesty, please help Wushuang. Chapter 130. Innocent. Elder Ning coldly snorted, his indifferent face raised a touch of ridicule. I heard that more than half a year ago, the people of your royal family framed Yun Ruoyan, claiming that she robbed a handsome man on the street so that the crown prince would cancel the engagement with her. However, I found out that the person who deliberately framed her was the innocent Mu Wushuang. The old man's words were like a heavy weight, mercilessly hitting concubine Mu's heart. She was shocked and her eyes widened, denying it. That's impossible. Wushuang is a kind person, he would never do such a thing. Even though concubine Mu said so, her heart was not sure. Perhaps the world did not know Mu Wushuang's true character, but she knew it very well. With Mu Wushuang's character, he would definitely do such a thing. Guards! Gao Tu hardened his heart and commanded, bring Mu Wushuang to see me. Your Majesty! Concubine Mu cried out, she clenched her fists tightly. Wushuang would never do such a thing, this is all a false accusation. If Mu Wushuang's reputation was ruined, it would be extremely disadvantageous to the Mujia. She would never allow such a thing to happen. Beloved, you're tired, go and rest. Gao Tu looked at concubine Mu's pale face and lightly said, obviously he has been dissatisfied with concubine Mu's repeated rude words. Although concubine Mu is very much favored by him, he will not offend the medical pavilion for a woman. With Elder Rong here, the Mujia can only accept their bad luck this time. Concubine Mu's body trembled. She relied on Gao Tu's love for her in the past to plead for Mu Wushuang, but before she could speak, the man's majestic voice sounded again. Guards, take concubine Mu away, without my order, she is not allowed to take a step out of the palace. Hearing this, on both sides of the palace, 2 guards stood up and respectfully cupped their fists. Yes, your Majesty. Concubine Mu's body softened and almost fell to the ground. She stubbornly supported her body and unwillingly bowed to Gao Tu, bowed and said, this concubine will take her leave. Her beautiful eyes were filled with pitiful tears. When she looked up, she couldn't help but look at Gao Tu again. After seeing that Gao Tu did not respond, she could only follow the 2 guards out of the hall. Elder Rong, I will send someone to bring Mu Wushuang, please wait for a moment. Gao Tu smiled. His tone was no longer as sharp as before. Instead, it was filled with a fawning tone. Elder Rong snorted and ignored Gao Tu's goodwill. He arrogantly turned his head to the side and began to chat with Elder Ning. He's old, and his legs are really inconvenient. He's not like some people who don't know how to give up their seats to the elderly. The old man's voice was filled with dissatisfaction as he frowned slightly. This caused Gao Tu to react abruptly. With a stern face, he berated Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng, are you still not going to give up your chair to Elder Rong? In the entire hall, only he and Yun Luofeng were sitting. Therefore, Gao Tu was certain that the person Elder Rong spoke of was Yun Luofeng. Hearing this, the corners of Yun Luofeng's lips curled up. His demonic eyes swept towards Gao Tu and he said with a faint smile, "Are you sure Elder Rong wants me to give up my seat? If it's not you, who else would it be?" Gao Tu's face was stern as he sternly berated, "Yun Luofeng, even though you have saved the lives of the people of the medical pavilion, Elder Rong's status is still there. You still need to respect him and not force him to repay you. What's more, Elder Rong came to the Imperial Palace for you. You should give up your seat to him." Chapter 131. Elder Ning calmly swept his gaze across the righteous emperor and laughed mockingly. This old man has never seen such a shameless person. The person that Elder Rong was talking about was obviously you, yet you insist on pushing the blame onto the Yun girl. The thickness of your skin is unparalleled. Gao Tu's expression froze. What does this old man mean? Elder Rong is not referring to Yun Luofeng? It's me? He turned his gaze towards Elder Rong at the thought of this. When he saw the ridicule in the old man's eyes, Gao Tu felt flustered and a wave of anger rose from his heart. He glared coldly at Yun Luofeng as his dignified eyes darkened. If it had not been for her, I would never have lost all my dignity in front of so many officials. I would never have been humiliated like this. Sooner or later, I will return this humiliation to her. As the emperor of Long Yuan country, Gao Tu naturally has his own pride. On the surface, he treats these people respectfully, but in reality, he is not willing to serve anyone. He has always believed that as the ruler of the 9-5, he should be above everyone else. He should accept the worship and obedience of the world. He should not be trying to curry favor with anyone else. However, in the end, he suppressed the anger in his heart and ordered coldly, "Servants, prepare seats for these two guests." Not two, but three. Elder Ning smiled calmly. General Yun Luo is old and frail. Do you intend to let him stand here forever? These words almost made Gao Tu spit out 3 liters of blood. He clenched his fists tightly and took a deep breath to quell the anger in his heart. He then ordered coldly, "Prepare a seat for General Yun as well." Only the heavens would know how sullen he felt when he said these words. His handsome face was filled with cold and hard lines. A sharp light flashed across his dignified eyes as he stared coldly at Yun Luo. He wanted to see if General Yun would dare to sit in front of him. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. Yun Luo slowly sat down in front of him. The old man's face was filled with a high-spirited smile as if he did not place the emperor in his eyes at all. Gao Tu's eyes darkened, and a fierce glint flashed across his eyes. It was filled with strong killing intent. At this moment, Gao Tu really wanted to kill this old general who had made great contributions to the Long Yuan country. Just because this old man dared to sit in front of him. Wouldn't this mean that he's on equal footing with me? Gao Tu, who was easily paranoid, couldn't help but wonder if this old man was planning to usurp the throne. Otherwise, why would he dare to sit on equal footing with him? "Your Majesty!" A shrill voice came from outside the hall. A eunuch walked into the great hall with a horsetail whisk in his hand. Dusting his robes, he knelt down and reported, "Reporting to your Majesty, Prime Minister Mu and Mu Wuxuan are already waiting outside the great hall." Gao Tu frowned. He glanced at Elder Rong, who was seated in the hall, and coldly ordered, "Let them in." "Yes, your Majesty." The eunuch bowed and hurriedly walked out of the great hall. Not too long after, Mu Xingqiu, who was dressed in court robes, slowly walked into the great hall. He stood with his hands behind his back, his tall figure incomparably dignified. His elderly face showed a sense of astonishment when he saw the people seated in the great hall, clearly not knowing what was going on. Mu Wuxuan, who had followed closely behind, saw Yun Luofeng at first glance. A strange light flashed across her beautiful eyes. At this moment, an uneasy feeling welled up in her heart. Chapter 132. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Mu Xingqiu and Mu Wushuang walked in front of Gao Tu and greeted him respectfully. Rise. Gao Tu raised his hand and said indifferently, Wushuang, Yun Luofeng said that you've been bullying him all these years. Is this true? Mu Wushuang raised her beautiful eyes in surprise and turned to Yun Luofeng. After a long time, she regained her senses and said righteously, Yun Luofeng, you're weak. Not only were you bullied, you even met with the Crown Prince's rejection of your engagement. But what does this have to do with me? Don't you dare slander me. I, Mu Wushuang, have never done anything to hurt you. If it's true, I can't deny it. Yun Luofeng couldn't possibly know what she had done all these years. So, as long as she didn't admit it, even if Yun Luofeng came to the emperor to complain about her, it wouldn't help. Yun Shao looked at Mu Wushuang expressionlessly. His cold eyes were so deep that no one could tell what this man was thinking. Yun Luofeng. Mu Xingqiu didn't allow anyone to answer Mu Wushuang's question and continued, Wushuang will never look at a trash like you. Not to mention you. It's you who has been looking for trouble with Wushuang, and even schemed to frame her. I advise you not to bring shame upon yourself. Also, you should take care of your Yun family's guard. If he looks at Wushuang again, don't blame me for being impolite. My identity as the daughter of the Mu family is not something a guard can dream of. Mu Wushuang heard her grandfather's words and turned to look at Yun Shao. At that moment, her beautiful eyes flashed with obvious amazement. Before this, she had thought that Crown Prince Gao Ling was the most handsome man in Long Yuan country. She didn't expect the Yun family to have such an outstanding guard. Not only did this man have a face that even the gods would be jealous of, but his body was also perfect enough to make people's blood boil. Especially his deep eyes, it was as if they could suck people deep into his black pupils in an instant. If this cold man didn't stand beside Yun Luofeng like a guard, no one would be able to guess his lowly identity. Such a man was like a king, with such a strong aura. Even Gao Tu, who was the emperor, didn't have it. Mu Wushuang recovered from his slight amazement and sneered in his heart. So what if this cold man's aura was strong? Since he was willing to be a guard for the Yun family, he must not have any outstanding status. A mere bodyguard was not worthy of her. She was destined to be the mother of the world. She was not someone that ordinary people could imagine. Ningxen couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her pretty face lit up with a smile. Grandfather, I really don't understand, why do some people think so highly of themselves? Yun Shao had only taken a glance at her and she was certain that the other party had taken a fancy to her? All the men in the world only need to glance at her once to fall in love with her? In any case, she had lived in the Yun family for half a year. How could she not know that Yun Shao only had eyes for Yun Luofeng? He would only obey Yun Luofeng's orders unconditionally. This man didn't even care about his grandfather and elder Rong. How could such a person be interested in Mu Wushuang? Upon hearing their words, Yun Shao turned towards Mu Wushuang once again. His paralyzed face was forever expressionless and his grim, black eyes were calm and unmoved. Chapter 133. You're too stupid. His voice was hoarse and magnetic as it slowly fell into the quiet hall. Like a stone falling into a lake, it caused a ripple. Mu Wushuang's expression immediately changed. She clenched her fists tightly as a cold light flashed across her beautiful eyes. This man dared to insult her like this? If she was stupid, there would be no smart people in this world. You're saying I'm stupid? Suddenly Mu Wushuang sneered. If I'm stupid, then why wouldn't Yun Luofeng, who is smarter than me, win the Crown Prince's favor? Why did the Crown Prince choose me instead? The man was silent for a moment before he truthfully replied, he's also stupid. His words were always simple and clear. You should never expect this cold man who cherishes his words like gold to say more to you. That's right, Yun Shao, you're right. These two idiots are a match made in heaven. If they don't get together, they'll be letting down the heavens. Yun Luofeng lazily leaned against the back of her chair, the corners of her lips curled up into a demonic smile. She turned her gaze towards Yun Shao and said playfully, if you want to look in the future, just look at me. Otherwise, some people will be thick-skinned enough to think that you've taken a fancy to her. As she said this, Yun Luofeng's demonic eyes glanced at the ice-cold Mu Wuxuan and the smile in her eyes deepened. However, when her words fell into the hall, it stirred up a storm. Everyone looked at Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao with astonished gazes, as if they were watching a piece of gossip. They had long heard that Yun Luofeng was fond of beautiful men. Not only had she pursued the crown prince for many years, but she had also stolen a man in public. Who would have thought that today, she wouldn't even let her own bodyguard off? Yun Luofeng felt the astonished gazes and his old face became a little embarrassed. He glared fiercely at Yun Luofeng. This smelly girl, she's actually flirting with Yun Xiao as if there's no one else around. If this gets out, where will I put my old face? All right. Yun Xiao heard Yun Luofeng's words and nodded seriously. Perhaps he was afraid that Yun Luofeng would misunderstand, so he explained in a serious manner, I heard that her skin is very thick, so I wanted to see who's thicker, her or the city wall. Sure enough, I still think that she's thicker. The man's serious expression made it seem as if he was narrating a fact, making it impossible to doubt a word he said. And this is also the longest sentence he has said so far, but it was used to judge Mu Wuxuan. Was this considered Mu Wuxuan's honor? Yun Luofeng. Even if Mu Wuxuan's self-cultivation was good, he was still angered by Yun Zhao's words and his chest heaved up and down. He angrily said, You better control your people. If you don't know how to discipline them, I don't mind doing it for you. Yun Luofeng glanced at her from the corner of his eye and slowly rose from his seat. There was a sense of arrogance in his demonic smile. You have no right to lecture my people. Mu Xingqiu, Mu Wuxuan, the blood debt that your Mu Jia owes, Yun Luofeng, will definitely make them pay. The Prime Minister's mansion owed the Yun family far too much. If it weren't for Mu Xingqiu, the parents of this body wouldn't have passed away at such a young age, leaving behind the young Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng, Mu Xingqiu's eyes were filled with anger. Yes, the death of your parents is indeed related to my Mu Jia, but I've already apologized. What else do you want? Besides, haven't you heard of the saying that if the king of hell wants you dead by midnight, who would dare to keep you alive until midnight? If your parents weren't fated to die, even if I leaked the information, they wouldn't have died. It was because the king of hell wanted to take care of them that they fell. Chapter 134. In other words, the death of Yun Luofeng's parents had nothing to do with him. So what if he leaked the information? If they weren't fated to die, they wouldn't have died either. If they died, it proves that the king of hell wanted to take them away. Besides, he has already apologized. Does the Yun family need to push him too far? Thinking of the time when Yun Luo led the army to flatten his mansion, his heart was full of resentment. Yun Luofeng, your parents died early. You should think about whether your parents did something wicked, or else the king of hell wouldn't have taken them away. Don't blame us all the time. I have already apologized. I, Mu Xingqiu, have a clear conscience. Yun Luofeng laughed. That year, when the two armies were at war, my parents fell into a bitter battle. As a result, the two of them thought of a countermeasure, but this countermeasure needed the cooperation of others. So, my father sent a letter to the imperial city overnight, but the emperor believed you and ordered you to cooperate with my parents. And you, because of your greed for beauty, fell into the enemy's honey trap, leaked the information, and even exposed the location of my parents, causing my parents to die. Isn't this your fault? Mu Xingqiu's face changed. He stubbornly said, I'll say it again, your parents did something wicked, that's why the king of hell took their lives. I didn't do anything wrong. What's more, it's normal for two armies to fight to the death. This matter has nothing to do with me. In the face of Mu Xingqiu's shameless denial, the ministers all felt disdain, but the other party had a daughter who was an imperial concubine. No matter how much disdain they felt in their hearts, they didn't dare to show it on their faces. Yun Luofeng sneered, turned to the two old men behind him, and slightly raised the corner of his lips. Elder Rong, Elder Ning, I know you want to help me get revenge, but I still think it's more refreshing to do it myself. You don't need to intervene in this matter, leave the rest to me. The two old men nodded, looking at Mu Xingqiu with eyes full of mockery. They have seen shameless people, but they have never seen shameless to this extent. Today was truly an eye-opener for them. Mu Wuxuan. After saying this, Yun Luofeng's evil eyes once again turned to Mu Wuxuan. You are most proud of your medical skills. I don't know if you dare to compete with me here. If I lose, you can do whatever you want with me, but if you lose, I want everyone in the Mu clan to kneel in front of my parents' grave and admit your wrongs. In addition, I want you to write a statement of guilt. Write down everything that the Prime Minister's mansion has done over the years and post it on the city walls as a warning. Mu Wuxuan's expression completely changed. She couldn't agree to either of Yun Luofeng's requests. She couldn't accept with the letter of the Prime Minister's grave, let alone the Prime Minister's grave. To Mu Luofeng with this, the Prime Minister's reputation would be ruined. Mu Minister's Luo with. Mu Wuxuang bit her lips tightly, her elegant and beautiful face showed a touch of entanglement. Her brows slightly wrinkled, obviously she was still thinking about whether or not to agree to Yun Luofeng's challenge. Ha ha, Mu Xingqiu, do you still remember what you said to me before? Yun Luo laughed out loud and said sarcastically, you said that your Mu family had imperial concubine Mu, and now you have Mu Wuxuan. No matter how many geniuses my general's estate has, they can't compare to your Prime Minister's estate, who can talk pillow talk in front of His Majesty. But now, if Mu Wuxuang refuses my granddaughter's proposal, it means that you admit that the Prime Minister's people are inferior to my granddaughter. Chapter 135. Mu Xingqiu's eyes were burning with anger. He coldly snorted, turned his head to look at Mu Wuxuang, and sternly ordered. Wuxuang, since the Yun family wants to ask for trouble, then you must fulfill their wish. I don't believe that with Yun Luofeng's strength, he can really compete with Mu Wuxuang. Mu Wuxuang was a little hesitant, her brows slightly wrinkled, her eyes swept to the old man sitting in the hall, a strange light flashed in her eyes. This old man had fainted on a boat on the Qin River, but she had been unable to find out what kind of illness he was suffering from. However, Yun Luofeng had gone to save the old man right in front of her. Because of this, Mu Wuxuan didn't know whether she should accept this challenge or not. Wuxuang. Mu Xingqiu obviously knew the hesitation in his granddaughter's heart. He walked to Mu Wuxuang's side, his eyes revealing a gloomy light. You accept Yun Luofeng's challenge. I believe that with your strength, you will not lose to her. What's more, even if she loses, Yun Luofeng doesn't have any evidence of the Mu clan's crimes in her hands. She still can't do anything to us. As if Mu Xingqiu's words had given Mu Wuxuang confidence, her beautiful eyes slightly lifted and fell on Yun Luofeng's body. Yun Luofeng, if you lose this competition, I want you to be my servant from now on. Serve me for life. Didn't she like the crown prince? At that time, when this woman saw him and the crown prince loving each other, she would definitely feel as if a knife was being twisted in her heart and she would rather die. This was the price the general's mansion had to pay for daring to be their enemy all these years. Mu Wuxuan seemed to be able to see Yun Luofeng's pained expression, and the corners of his mouth involuntarily rose into a graceful and moving smile. All right, Yun Luofeng leaned against Yun Zhao's body as if there was no one else around, her posture languid and demonic. She stretched lazily and turned towards Mu Wuxuan with a smile. The prerequisite is that you have the ability to make me serve you like a slave. Mu Wuxuang snorted, no longer entangled in the bet. She sneered and asked, Yun Luofeng, this bet, since it was you who proposed it, then I should be the one to decide how to make this bet. Yun Luofeng squinted at Mu Wuxuang and raised the corner of his lips. Sure, say it. Seeing that Yun Luofeng was so easily fooled, Mu Wuxuang's heart flashed with joy. Her eyes turned slightly and turned to the eunuch who was standing quietly next to her, her face still holding an elegant smile. Eunuch Lin has been castrated since he entered the palace. If you have the ability to restore him to his masculinity, I, Mu Wuxuang, am willing to admit defeat. Not only will we fulfill our bet, but we will also be at your disposal. For a man who had already become a eunuch, even if an immortal came, it would be impossible for him to regain his vigor, let alone Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng looked at Mu Wuxuang with a faint smile. If the two of us can't restore his masculinity, then who will win and who will lose? Mu Wuxuang faintly smiled. Yun Luofeng, I just want you to know the difficulties and retreat. Your medical skills can't compare with mine. If you admit defeat now, maybe you can save the last face, But if you insist on doing so, the only one who will lose face is you. Her lecturing tone was like she was teaching Yun Luofeng. I just want to know, if the two of us can't cure him, who will be judged as the loser? Yun Luofeng raised her eyebrows and looked at Mu Wushuang's elegant and indifferent face, the corner of her mouth holding a trace of a demonic smile. Chapter 136. Of course you lose. Mu Wushuang said as if it was a matter of course. The competition was proposed by you, and the question was set by me. So, if you succeed in making Eunuch Lin a man again, I will admit defeat. Otherwise you lose. Everyone could hear the unfairness of the verdict, causing the ministers to whisper to each other, but no one dared to question it. Yun Luo frowned slightly, and just as he was about to refute, Gao Tu's hearty laughter suddenly came from the high seat. General Yun, since it was your granddaughter who proposed the bet, your Yun family wouldn't want to go back on your word, right? Moreover, since Mu Wushuang is the one being challenged, then whether it's the question or the verdict, it should be decided by her. This is not wrong. Gao Tu's heart was still biased towards the Prime Minister's mansion. Even in front of Elder Rong, he still stood on Mu Wushuang's side. What's more, he was just a notary of the competition. He didn't hurt Yun Luofeng. Even Elder Rong couldn't say anything. After all, the people of the medical pavilion still had to take into account the spiritual gate behind him. Hee. Elder Ning laughed twice and said mockingly, "So this is the Long Yuan country's royal family's doing." As far as I know, not only did Prime Minister Mu not make any contribution to Long Yuan country, but he also almost dragged down the whole country. Just because his daughter is the imperial concubine of Long Yuan country is biased towards him. For this reason, they didn't hesitate to give up the hard-working General Yun Luo. This Long Yuan country's favoritism was too obvious. Yun Luo had made great contributions to the country, but he couldn't be compared to the daughter of an imperial concubine. Little girl, are you sure? Elder Rong frowned, looking at Yun Luofeng and asked, "If you're not sure, Elder Rong, will definitely protect your safety even if I have to sacrifice my face." Although Elder Rong knew that Yun Luofeng's medical skills were excellent, the ability to bring a dead person back to life was too magical, and generally, no one could do it. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile, and his evil eyes looked towards Gao Tu, who was sitting on the dragon throne. "I don't know why my old man has been loyal to a king like you all these years. My parents died too unjustly, and it's not worth it." Yun Luofeng. Anger burned in Gao Tu's chest. His sharp gaze shot towards Yun Luofeng. "You were the one who made this bet. Are you going back on your word now?" Yun Luofeng smiled disapprovingly. Yun Luofeng, have always been a man of my word. I won't be like the people of the royal family who will never keep their promises." She was referring to the fact that she didn't have to kneel in front of the royal family. However, when these words fell into Gao Tu's ears, the meaning clearly changed. "We had indeed set up an engagement between you and the Crown Prince, but who knew that you were actually a good-for-nothing? As a piece of trash, how can you be worthy of being the mother of the world? Therefore, taking back my promise isn't my fault. It's your own failure to live up to expectations." Yun Luofeng raised her eyebrows slightly. She didn't explain much about Gao Tu's misunderstanding. Her evil eyes slowly turned towards Elder Rong. "Elder Rong, your medical pavilion has a lot of medicinal herbs. Please help me send these over. Remember, all the herbs I want must be over 100 years old, the more precious the better. Also, put these herbs on the royal family's account." Chapter 137. Gao Tu's face was ashen, and his gaze toward Yun Luofeng was filled with malice. Yun Shao sensed Gao Tu's gaze and his brows furrowed. He stood in front of Yun Luofeng, using his own body to block Gao Tu's line of sight. If it wasn't for the fact that Yun Luofeng didn't like other people interfering in her affairs, just this glance from Gao Tu was enough for her to die 1,000,000 times. "Little Yun, tell me the name of the medicinal herb. I'll go get it for you right now." Elder Rong laughed out loud. He was in a good mood. Every stalk of 100-year-old medicinal herb had a sky-high price in the medical pavilion. Usually, they wouldn't be able to sell a single stalk in a month. They didn't expect to sell so many in such a short time. One could imagine that the emperor's treasury was going to bleed a lot this time. In addition, although this treatment is the result of the bet between me and Mu Wushuang, I once swore to my master that I will not treat patients who don't pay. The master that she mentioned was, of course, made up. Furthermore, she had used him as a shield. However, when these words fell on Elder Rong's heart, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he was even more certain of his guess. Wasn't that godly doctor very greedy? It was said that in order to seek treatment from him, one would need to pay a huge fortune in addition to having a good affinity with him. You have no money? Then he probably won't even see you. Therefore, Elder Rong had already determined that Yun Luofeng was the disciple of the miracle doctor. If Yun Luofeng knew what Elder Rong was thinking, he would definitely sigh in his heart. This misunderstanding was really deep. Yun Luofeng, you haven't even treated him and you're asking for money? Mu Xingqiu spoke first. He glared at Yun Luofeng angrily. Furthermore, I've never heard of a bet being used to treat illnesses. Furthermore, I've never heard of anyone asking for money. Yun Luofeng sighed and said awkwardly, I don't have a choice. I swore in front of my master that I won't treat patients who don't pay. Otherwise, he will expel me from the sect. Xiaomo, who had remained silent in the divine hall for a very long time, could not help but burst into laughter when he heard Yun Luofeng's words. As expected, if her master didn't cheat others, she wouldn't be her master. Even in this kind of situation, he did not forget to ask for a sum of money. Yun Luofeng, how much do you want? Gao Tu's expression was ugly as he asked through clenched teeth. Yun Luofeng's eyes flickered a few times. He smiled slightly and said, not much, 50 million gold. If it was 50 million taels of silver, it would still make sense, but she actually asked for gold? Gao Tu tightly clenched his fists and coldly snorted, Yun Luofeng, if you cannot make Eunuch Lin a real man, we will not give you a single cent. Not to mention Gao Tu, even the ministers present all believed that Yun Luofeng was incapable of restoring Eunuch Lin's majesty. That was why he found such a lowly excuse. Now that his majesty had promised her, let's see what other excuses she could find. Just as the ministers were guessing, the girl's languid and demonic voice slowly rang out in the hall. Fine, if I fail, I won't charge a single copper coin. If I succeed, I want the royal family to fulfill their promise and pay 50 million taels of gold. She agreed? Everyone was taken aback, and their astonished gazes turned to the beautiful white-clothed girl in the middle of the hall. Could it be that the 50 million taels of gold that she had proposed was not an excuse for her incompetence? However, making a eunuch a real man was too unimaginable. How could this happen? Impossible. The ministers comforted themselves in their hearts. They definitely did not believe that Yun Luofeng's medical skills had reached such a high level. Chapter 138. Elder Rong's speed was very fast. Before long, he had arrived at the Imperial Palace from the medical pavilion. He took out the herbs from his space ring and smiled, Yun girl, I've brought the herbs you wanted. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw the medicinal ingredients that appeared out of nowhere. They stared at the ring on Elder Rong's finger with a hint of envy. That was a space ring. A treasure that all martial artists in the world could only dream of. Who would have thought that Elder Rong would have such a treasure? It's about time. Yun Luofeng gently stroked his chin and smiled evilly. Elder Rong, I don't trust the people in the Imperial Palace to brew the medicine. Hence, I'll leave this matter to you, Elder Rong. Oh yes, don't forget to ask the Emperor for your reward. To have Elder Rong brew the medicine personally, I'm afraid not many people in Long Yuan country have such treatment. It should not be less than 10 million gold. At this moment, the man on the high seat's face turned ashen, his eyes burning with anger. He wanted to use his eyes to cut Yun Luofeng into 1,000 pieces. Elder Rong laughed out loud. That's right, the Yun girl is right. I'll personally brew the medicine, so I can't be short of money. Gao Tu, you should prepare the money first, just in case you can't take out so much money in an emergency. Gao Tu took a deep breath, suppressing the anger in his heart. He gritted his teeth and said, Yun Luofeng, if you can't cure his infertility, I will make you pay for what you've done today. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and smiled evilly, you won't have such a chance. What was arrogance? No one knew better than the officials present. A hedonistic son was indeed a hedonistic son. No matter what he did, he was always so brainless. A eunuch who had his manhood cut off could still become a man? This was even more exaggerated than an ant raping an elephant. Feng, Yun Luofeng frowned and asked worriedly, "How confident are you?" Hearing the old man's worried voice, Yun Luofeng smiled devilishly. His eyes were filled with incomparable confidence. "Don't worry, just collect the money. I will fill up our Yun family's treasury. Besides, this is what he owes our Yun family." Yun Luofeng did not say anything else. Even he himself did not know why he trusted this granddaughter whom he had not seen in 10 years. It was as if, whatever she said, she would definitely do it. Before long, Elder Rong boiled the medicinal ingredients into soup and brought it in front of Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng took the medicinal soup and slowly walked towards Eunuch Lin. "Your Majesty!" Eunuch Lin turned pale with fright and hurriedly turned to look at Gao Tuesday. He wanted to plead on his behalf, but Gao Tu's words made him unable to say anything. "Do whatever she tells you to do, don't disobey." The emperor's voice was filled with an unquestionable decision, causing Eunuch Lin's heart to be filled with bitterness. He turned to look at the young girl who had already walked up to him, and a sense of fear slowly rose in his heart. "Drink it." The young woman raised her brows as she looked at Eunuch Lin. Eunuch Lin laughed bitterly. He extended a trembling old hand and timidly accepted the soup Yun Luofeng handed him. Before this, he had already completely offended the Yun family when he had been ordered to capture Yun Luofeng. Now, Mu Wushuang had used him as a test subject in the competition. He could imagine that Yun Luofeng must have brewed poison for him. Eunuch Lin was filled with regret. If he had known earlier, he would not have offended the Yun family in order to please the imperial consort. Now, his life was over. Chapter 139. Eunuch Lin closed his eyes and poured the medicinal soup down his throat, unafraid of death. His face was covered in makeup and no one could see his expression, but anyone could guess that it must be an extremely ugly sight. Clang. Feeling a burning sensation on his chest, the soup bowl in Eunuch Lin's hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. He clutched his stomach in agony and glared fixedly at Yun Luofeng. He gritted his teeth and said, "You poisoned me." Poison? The crowd exploded when they heard this. They never thought that Yun Luofeng would kill Eunuch Lin with poison in front of everyone. Yun Luofeng, Mu Wushuang glanced at the pained Eunuch Lin and furrowed her willowy brows. A sense of dissatisfaction flashed across her beautiful eyes. "You had promised so readily and I really thought that you had the power to do so. I had already prepared myself for your humiliation. I never thought that for the sake of a bet, you would disregard the lives of others and actually brew a poison to harm him." Mu Wushuang looked puzzled as she stared at the young girl who was standing with her arms crossed in front of her. She really could not understand how Yun Luofeng could still remain as steady as Mount Tai at a time like this. Mu Wushuang furrowed her willowy brows and continued to berate him in a righteous voice. "Yun Luofeng, you've harmed people's lives. How can you act so righteously? A person like you is not fit to be a doctor." In the great hall, the ministers all stared accusingly at Yun Luofeng. Some of their eyes were even filled with disdain and ridicule, feeling disdain for the young girl's actions. The young girl's peerless features curled into a demonic smile. She crossed her arms over her chest and lazily glanced at Eunuch Lin, who was rolling on the ground in fright. "He's rolling on the ground with such strength. Does he look like he's been poisoned?" As soon as the young lady finished speaking, all eyes gathered on Eunuch Lin. Eunuch Lin was stunned and stopped rolling on the ground. He could not understand what was going on either. In that moment, he clearly thought that he was about to be poisoned to death. Why is he still perfectly fine now? Moreover, a warm feeling enveloped his entire body, making him feel unusually comfortable. "I'm not dead." Eunuch Lin crawled to his feet and dusted off the dust on his robes. He smiled awkwardly. "My apologies, I thought that I'd been poisoned." Did he think he was poisoned? If not for the fact that Eunuch Lin was extremely trusted by His Majesty, they would have already cursed him. This guy thought that he was poisoned and was making a big fuss here, causing them to lose face together with him? Mu Wushuan clenched her fists tightly as a look of shame appeared on her face. She wished she could find a hole to hide in. This was too shameful, too shameful. It was all Eunuch Lin's fault. If he hadn't stood up for him, he wouldn't have been humiliated like this. Your Majesty, Just as Eunuch Lin was about to explain his actions, there was a thump as a leg kicked him in the crotch. Caught off guard, he was sent flying. What are you doing? Eunuch Lin shrieked angrily as he glared at Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng didn't say much. She lifted Eunuch Lin up again and slammed him onto the ground. She stepped on Eunuch Lin's body and said evilly, "Don't forget, the Emperor said that you have to do whatever I tell you to." Then, Yun Luofeng retracted his leg, his voice filled with laziness. Chapter 140. Aside from Yun Xiao, no one else had noticed that Yun Luofeng had injected spiritual energy into Eunuch Lin's body while he was berating him. Eunuch Lin's chest burned with rage. He knows that Yun Luofeng must have done it on purpose. He was just looking for an excuse to beat him up. The more he thought about it, the angrier Eunuch Lin became. He rose to his feet and was about to complain when he suddenly felt a burning sensation in his crotch. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. Ning Xian, turn around. Yun Luofeng turned towards Ning Xian and raised his brow. Ning Xian blinked and a sense of confusion flashed in her eyes. However, she did not ask anything and turned her back towards Yun Luofeng. The moment the beautiful girl turned around, Yun Luofeng pulled out a sword from a guard's hand. With two swishing sounds, Eunuch Lin's clothes were all cut to shreds. The moment she swung her sword down, the cold man who had remained expressionless reached out to cover her eyes. Yun Luofeng raised the corners of his lips. Sometimes, she did not need to say much for Yun Xiao to know what to do. Even Yun Luofeng himself could not understand when she and Yun Xiao had developed such a tacit understanding. Impossible, I must be blind. This is absolutely impossible. After a moment of silence in the great hall, a shocked voice suddenly rang out. Mu Wuxuan had forgotten all the restraint a woman should have as her beautiful eyes stared fixedly at the naked Eunuch Lin. She hurriedly covered her mouth to prevent herself from screaming out loud. This woman has really turned a eunuch into a real man? How is this possible? Even my master could not do such a thing. How did this woman manage to do it? At this moment, Mu Wuxuan's body began to tremble violently. Her elegant features were now completely pale and colorless. Eunuch Lin. Gao Tu rose to his feet abruptly and exclaimed angrily, "How dare you? You actually hid in our harem as a man. What are your intentions?" Thump. Eunuch Lin was so frightened that he fell to his knees and spoke in a trembling voice, "Your Imperial Majesty, this servant has been wrongly accused. This servant has really undergone the punishment of castration. However, I don't know what's going on, it has grown back on its own." Eunuch Lin, there's no need for you to say anything more. You must have escaped the punishment. Guards, drag Eunuch Lin away and behead him in public. A murderous intent flashed in Gao Tu's eyes as he ordered sternly. Based on Gao Tu's point of view, Eunuch Lin must have escaped the punishment of castration. That was why he now has the characteristics of a man. This could not be the effect of Yun Luofeng's medicine. Seeing the two guards walking over, Eunuch Lin's body softened and he collapsed to the ground. His face was filled with despair. He knew that His Majesty wouldn't acknowledge Yun Luofeng's ability and would only use him as an example. Gao Tu turned and looked at Luofeng. From Luofeng I, Lin Luofeng I, and Luofeng I, Luo I, from the punishment from Luo Lin and Luo Shin, who Lin, this competition does not count. You can choose another day to compete with Mu Wuxuan again. Yun Luofeng gently raised her brows. She never thought that Gao Tu would shamelessly deny everything. He had even directly judged that Eunuch Lin had escaped the punishment of castration. His motive was to protect Mu Wuxuan? Suddenly, Yun Luofeng wanted to know what benefits the Prime Minister's residence had given him to cause him to act in such an unreasonable manner. Chapter 141. Since you claim that Eunuch Lin has escaped the punishment of castration, then I shall castrate you. Yun Luofeng smiled devilishly. The sword in her hand suddenly left her hand and with a slash, it sliced through Eunuch Lin's penis. As her eyes were still blindfolded by Yun Xiao, this attack was completely based on instinct. Arg! A heart-wrenching scream pierced through the air, bringing with it a hair-raising mournful shriek. Eunuch Lin immediately fainted from the pain. Fresh blood continued to gush from his lower body, staining the ground red. The young girl's cruel and decisive methods caused the officials to shiver. They never thought that she would castrate Eunuch Lin in front of everyone. Yun Luofeng. Gao Tu was thoroughly enraged. He suddenly stood up and said sternly, "What are you doing?" As if he did not sense Gao Tu's anger, Yun Luofeng said unhurriedly, "Elder Rong, please prepare another bowl of medicine and force it into his mouth. This time, I have already castrated Eunuch Lin in front of everyone so that certain people will no longer have any excuse." Elder Rong recovered from his shock and laughed out loud. "Little girl, there's still some medicine left. I'll go get it for you." This girl is decisive in killing and never shows mercy to her enemies. Her future achievements will be immeasurable. As soon as he finished speaking, he quickly walked out of the great hall and soon disappeared under the blazing sun. A moment later, Elder Rong, who was carrying a bowl of medicine, strode into the great hall. Without another word, he walked in front of Eunuch Lin and held his chin tightly with his fingers, forcing the bowl of medicine into his mouth. Cough, cough. The eunuch choked and coughed a few times, slowly regaining consciousness. At the same time, Yun Luofeng's fist once again landed fiercely on his body. With a slash, he spat out a mouthful of blood and his already pale face turned even paler. After this ordeal, Eunuch Lin seemed to have aged a few decades and his gaze gradually became unfocused. All the officials stared fixedly at Eunuch Lin, unblinking, afraid that they would miss something. Even Mu Wuxuan did not care about the difference between men and women, his gaze landing on Eunuch Lin's crotch. Under everyone's gazes, Eunuch Lin's blood-stained crotch was like a bean sprout that was beginning to sprout. The entire hall quietened down along with the changes in his body. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Bang! Gao Tu's body landed heavily on the dragon throne. His face was ashen as he stared at the dazed Eunuch Lin. He thought about how laughable his words were. Impossible, this can't be true. Mu Xingqiu was the first to react. His body trembled as he staggered backwards. He stared at Eunuch Lin in disbelief. A eunuch could become a man? He had never heard of such a thing. If Yun Luofeng had not castrated Eunuch Lin in front of them, perhaps they would have been like Gao Tu and believed that Eunuch Lin had avoided the castration, and not because of the medicine. In an instant, all the officials in the hall looked towards Yun Luofeng, their eyes burning with passion. Just how great of a medical skill was needed to make a eunuch grow into a man? Forget about Mu Wuxuan, even her master did not have such a powerful ability. It was laughable that Mu Wuxuan had used a lecturing tone to speak to Yun Luofeng. Chapter 142. Your Majesty, this time, my granddaughter has won the bet. Shouldn't you ask the Prime Minister's residents to fulfill their promise? Yun Luoqiu's eyes were filled with pride as he asked in a bright voice. At this moment, Gao Tu's expression was rather disheveled as he slumped onto the dragon throne. His gaze slowly turned towards Mu Xingqiu and his grandson, and he said weakly, "Prime Minister Mu, tomorrow, you will personally go to the graves of Yun Luofeng's parents and kneel down to apologize to them. Also, write a letter of guilt and paste it on the city walls." Mu Xingqiu's face was ashen. As he lowered his head, a fierce look flashed across his eyes. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. At this time, Gao Tu could not show favoritism towards him, so he could only lower his stance. However, he would remember this debt. One day, he would repay this damned girl, Yun Luofeng. I'm tired, all of you can leave. Gao Tu closed his eyes tiredly. His heart was filled with bitterness. No matter how he thought about it, he would never have thought that Yun Luofeng was really a doctor and had such extraordinary medical skills. If he had known earlier, he would not have sided with the Prime Minister's residents and offended such a genius doctor. At this moment, Gao Tu finally understood the meaning of Elder Rong's words. Compared to Yun Luofeng, Mu Wuxuan was really nothing. Elder Ning. Yun Luofeng raised an eyebrow and turned to face Elder Ning. The corners of his lips curled into an evil smile. Hand over all the things you've found these past few years to the Prime Minister's residents. Have them write down their crimes according to the contents. I want everything. Half a year ago, she had asked Elder Ning to investigate all the crimes of the Prime Minister's residence, just for today. She would make the people from the Prime Minister's residence admit to everything they had done in front of everyone. Also, the smile on Yun Luofeng's face did not change. Instead, it became even more evil. It's not enough for the Prime Minister's residence to just paste the letter of guilt on the city gates. I want the Prime Minister's residence to read out the contents of the letter of guilt in front of all the citizens of Long Yuan country. Yun Luofeng. Mu Xingqiu clenched his fists in anger. A wave of anger almost burst out from his chest. Don't go too far. Could it be that your Prime Minister's mansion can afford to gamble, but can't afford to lose? Yun Luofeng cast a sidelong glance at the ashen-faced Mu Xingqiu. Since that's the case, Yun Xiao, take these people to the city gates tomorrow and force them to confess their crimes. If they refuse to talk no matter what, beat them until they are willing to talk. Yun Luofeng, how dare you? I am an important minister of the imperial court. What qualifications do you have to kidnap me? Mu Xingqiu's eyes were filled with intense killing intent as he asked fiercely. Yun Luofeng smiled evilly. So what if you're an important official of the court? I, Yun Luofeng, never fear anyone when I do things. If you don't believe it, you can give it a try. Mu Xingqiu clenched his fists tightly. His body trembled in anger. His eyes were spitting fire as he stared fixedly at the girl's lazy yet demonic figure. The killing intent in his eyes intensified. If he had known earlier, he would have killed this little slut before Yun Luo returned to the imperial court. But how could he have known that a good-for-nothing whom he had looked down on would actually cause so much trouble? Mu Xingqiu, I didn't expect that apart from being shameless, you old thief, you would also go back on your word. Yun Luofeng laughed loudly. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. However, since you've agreed to do something, you must do it. If you're unwilling to do so, I won't use any forceful methods. Chapter 143. You. Mu Xingqiu was so angry that he couldn't even speak. He subconsciously looked at Gao Tuesday. When he saw that Gao Tu's eyes were still closed and he didn't care about their dispute, his heart slowly sank into despair. Yun Luofeng. Mu Wushuang suppressed the jealousy in her heart and stared coldly at Yun Luofeng. Her beautiful eyes flashed fiercely. I, Mu Wushuang, am willing to concede defeat. I promise you that I will go to the city gates tomorrow, but I hope you won't regret what happened today. In this Long Yuan country, without the protection of the royal family, she would never be able to fight against the Yun family. The reason for this was none other than the existence of Yun Luo in the Yun family. As long as Yun Luo didn't die, she would never be able to destroy this slut, Yun Luofeng. Now, whenever she thought of Yun Luofeng's medical skills, Mu Wushuang felt as if a claw was fiercely scratching her heart. It was extremely uncomfortable. If she didn't get rid of him, she would never be at ease for the rest of her life. All right, I'll be waiting for you at the city gates tomorrow. After Yun Luofeng had finished speaking, she stretched lazily. She moved her shoulders and curled the corners of her lips seductively. Yun Xiao, let's go home. After saying this, she slowly turned around and walked out of the main hall. The afterglow of the setting sun poured down and fell on the girl's snow-white dress. It was so beautiful that it could take one's breath away. Yun Xiao was like a loyal bodyguard, following by Yun Luofeng's side from the very beginning. The man's face was always expressionless, so grim that it was as if nothing could move him. Hee. Elder Ning laughed and looked meaningfully at the backs of the two young men as they left. He then said meaningfully, I'm very curious, where did the Yun girl get her luck to pick up such a man? General Yun, this time your Yun family is really lucky, huh? After laughing twice, he walked out of the main hall, leaving behind a dumbfounded Yun Luo. Ever since the incident in the main hall spread, Yun Luofeng's name suddenly spread throughout the entire Long Yuan country. To describe it in 4 words, she became famous as a doctor. Those who had previously mocked and ridiculed her immediately changed their attitudes and wished that they could kneel down and lick her boots. So what if Yun Luofeng couldn't cultivate? She was a miracle doctor. With the reputation of being a divine doctor, it was unknown how many experts were willing to protect her. She could basically travel unimpeded on the continent. Even though Yun Luofeng had saved Elder Ning by the Qin River that day, many people still held a skeptical attitude. But now, so many officials from the imperial palace had gone to General Yun's residence to curry favor with him. One could imagine the shock that Yun Luofeng brought to them. At this moment, Mu Xingqiu and Mu Wuxuan of the Prime Minister's residence were standing at the entrance of the imperial city with embarrassed expressions on their faces. Behind them, a group of guards stood as still as a mountain, giving them nowhere to escape. They could only accept the astonished and shocked gazes of the people around them. Everyone! Yun Luofeng swept her gaze across the two people who were standing in a sorry state. She then turned her gaze towards the crowd of onlookers. Her beautiful face was filled with arrogance and coldness. I believe that all of you know what happened to the general's residence 10 years ago. 10 years ago? Hearing this sensitive number, the crowd started to whisper among themselves. Their astonished gazes occasionally glanced at Mu Xingqiu and his grandson. 10 years ago, my parents led the army to war. However, because Prime Minister Mu Xingqiu was greedy for women, they fell into the enemy's trap. This resulted in the leak of intelligence and caused my parents to die on the battlefield. Yun Luofeng's brows showed a deep sense of pain. Her voice also became increasingly sharp. But Mu Xingqiu, that old thief, refused to repent no matter what. Not only did he not admit to his mistakes, he even believed that my parents had committed evil deeds and that this was their fate. Chapter 144. The young lady's words were sharp, causing Mu Xingqiu to lower his head, almost burying it in the dust. What happened 10 years ago was not unfamiliar to the people of Long Yuan country. However, due to the influence of the Prime Minister's office, no one dared to speak up for the Prime Minister's office. What do you mean by doing evil and being fated to be like this? Yun Luofeng laughed. Her laughter was filled with arrogance and rang out once again at the city gate. I only know that good people do not live long, while evil people live for 1,000 years. My parents were killed by that old bastard Mu Xingqiu. Who knew that he would not feel any remorse after killing my parents? Hence, today, I will make Mu Xingqiu confess all the evil deeds he has done over the years to avenge my parents. Good. Someone in the crowd started clapping, and the others followed suit. At this moment, everyone's emotions were stirred up. Major General Yun is young and talented, and the young madam is valiant and heroic. They are both heroes in our hearts. I don't believe that such heroes would lose their lives on the battlefield because of their evil deeds. They were killed by Mu Xingqiu in order to protect the country. That's right. So many heroes have died on the battlefield. Could it be that their lives were taken because of their evil deeds? I have an uncle who lost his life on the battlefield, but he was a good man. I don't believe that the heavens can take in evil people. If the heavens had eyes, there wouldn't have been so many wars. Looking at the angry crowd, Yun Luofeng raised the corner of her lips slightly. Of course, she recognized the person who led the applause. That person was obviously the odd job worker of the medical pavilion. Needless to say, this person must have been sent by Elder Rong. Miss Yun, we should make them kneel down and apologize to Major General Yun. Yes, we must make them apologize. If they don't, they should pay with their lives for Major General Yun and the young madam. The reaction of the crowd was very intense. At this moment, they had thrown away all their misgivings. Some of them even spat at Mu Xingqiu, who was in a sorry state. Of course, Yun Luofeng also understood that it was precisely because these people had seen Mu Xingqiu's sorry state that they dared to step forward. If they were to face the high-spirited Prime Minister Mu, it was likely that they would not even dare to say a single word. Don't worry, Yun Luofeng raised his hand and silenced the angry voices of the crowd. I've asked them to come here now because the medical pavilion has investigated the crimes that the Mu family has committed over the years. Once this matter is over, I will make them personally go to my parents' grave and apologize. Actually, these things were all investigated by Elder Ning. However, the people did not know Elder Ning's identity. Therefore, Yun Luofeng brought up the medical pavilion. With the reputation of the medical pavilion, no one would doubt the truth of the matter. Mu Xingqiu's expression was very ugly, especially when someone had spat on him when he wasn't paying attention. The spit even had a disgusting stench that made people want to vomit. Mu Xingqiu, Yun Luofeng turned around and looked at Mu Xingqiu. Take out your book of crimes and report all the crimes that you have committed over the years. If there is even one missing, I will cut off one of your arms. Mu Xingqiu's body shivered violently. His hand trembled gently and he almost dropped the book of crimes in his hand. Chapter 145. I, Mu Xingqiu, have committed many mistakes over the years. Mu Xingqiu's voice trembled. What I regret the most is my lust for beauty, causing Major General Yun and young Madam to die on the battlefield. I can never make up for this mistake. Mu Xingqiu's face became more and more unsightly. The hand that was holding the book trembled more and more, and his eyes were full of despair. Secondly, when I was young, I had an affair with my sister-in-law and was accidentally discovered by my brother. In order not to spread this matter, I poisoned and murdered my brother. I told the public that he had contracted an illness and died. The crowd was in an uproar. No matter how they thought about it, Mu Xingqiu not only had an affair with his sister-in-law, but also murdered his own brother. Why didn't God punish such a person who was worse than an animal? Just as Yun Luofeng had said, good people don't live long, but scourges last for thousands of years. Compared to Major General Yun, who served the country and the people, Mu Xingqiu was the one who was truly guilty. Thirdly, because my father and mother suspected the cause of my brother's death, I was afraid that they wouldn't forgive me if they knew, so I acted first and killed them. To the public, I said that my father and mother couldn't bear the death of my brother, so they hanged themselves. The crowd was once again shocked by Mu Xingqiu's words. They thought that Mu Xingqiu was cruel enough to have an affair with his sister-in-law and brother, but they didn't expect that he would even kill his own parents? How could such a person still be alive in this world? The heavens are really blind. Next, every time Mu Xingqiu reported his crimes, the shock in the hearts of the crowd deepened. This Mu Xingqiu killed his brother and father, had an affair with his sister-in-law, and committed all sorts of crimes. There wasn't a single thing he hadn't done. It could be said that he had committed all the crimes that could be committed. Not a single one was left out. Mu Xingqiu's face turned from livid to pale, and in the end, it was as pale as a dead man's face. Until even he himself became numb, like a machine, he only knew how to read according to the book, not missing a single word. After he had reported more than 100 crimes one by one, the entire street in front of the city gate became quiet. It was so quiet that even the sound of the breeze could be heard clearly. Mu Wuxuang, it's your turn. Yun Luofeng turned her head to look at Mu Wuxuang. The corners of her lips curled up into a demonic smile. Do you plan on confessing your crimes yourself, or do you want me to help you? The help she was talking about was, of course, brute force. If Mu Wuxuang insists on not confessing, she doesn't mind using brute force to make him accept. Mu Wuxuang's face turned deathly pale in an instant. He bit his lip and silently looked at Yun Luofeng. Mu Wuxuang? Did Mu Wuxuang also make mistakes? This was impossible. Mu Xingqiu had indeed committed many evil deeds, but what did this have to do with Mu Wuxuang? Mu Wuxuang is elegant and kind, it's impossible for him to do evil things. Tiske, haven't you heard of the saying, you may know a person's face but not his heart? The medical pavilion has great prestige in the mainland. Since this matter was investigated by them, it cannot be false. After Yun Luofeng's words rang out, the quiet city gate became lively once again. The crowd whispered to each other, and their eyes revealed astonishment. Mu Xingqiu, with the exception of Mu Wuxuang, was not a good person. Everyone knew that Mu Xingqiu was shameless and lustful. For the sake of beauty, he leaked information and dragged down Major General Yun and his wife. Mu Wuqian, the eldest young master of the Mu clan, was indifferent, arrogant, cruel, and merciless. He did not put the world in his eyes at all. The second young master, Mu Shun, was a legitimate playboy. He often led a group of people out to cause trouble. Last time, he was severely beaten up by the Yun clan's guards who were protecting Yun Luofeng. Only Mu Wuxuang, who was elegant and kind, had not done any evil deeds. How could the world believe that he also had a book of crimes? Chapter 146. At the noisy gate of the city, After the crowd's discussion, Mu Wushuang clenched the confession book in his hand, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Today's humiliation, one day, I will return it to Yun Luofeng. Thinking of this, Mu Wushuang suppressed the anger in his heart and opened the book in his hand. I, Mu Wushuang, have committed heinous crimes and have killed countless people. Killed countless people? Boom. Mu Wushuang's words were like a sudden clap of thunder. Everyone's hearts were fiercely shaken. They stared dumbfoundedly at the pale-faced Mu Wushuang. For a moment, they even suspected that there was something wrong with their ears. Facing the astonished gazes of the crowd, Mu Wushuang kept his head down. His hand that was holding the book trembled slightly. Not only did I secretly send a message to the Crown Prince half a year ago, asking him to find a man to frame Yun Luofeng on the streets for molesting a beautiful man, causing Yun Luofeng's reputation to go down the drain. I also secretly executed some of the women who pestered the Crown Prince in Long Yuan country and pushed the blame on others. I was the one who spread Yun Luofeng's reputation of having big breasts and no brains, and being a lecherous love-struck fool. My goal was to make her break off the engagement with the Crown Prince so that I could become the Crown Princess of Long Yuan country, and 10 years ago, I was also the one who made my master ignore Yun Xianxia of the Yun family. Most importantly, I have a half-sister, and once, I accidentally discovered that she was infatuated with the Crown Prince, so my sister also died in my hands. The people of Long Yuan country did remember that there was a second miss in the Prime Minister's mansion. This second miss was not as intelligent as Mu Wushuang, nor was she a direct descendant of the Crown Prince. She was born of a concubine, so not many people cared about her death. But what they didn't expect was that the second miss of the Prime Minister's mansion was actually killed by Mu Wushuang. Everyone was shocked. If Mu Xingqiu's actions made them sigh endlessly, then Mu Wushuang's actions made them unable to believe it. No one could believe that this elegant and dignified first miss of the Prime Minister's mansion was actually someone who killed her own sister. Yun Luofeng smiled faintly. She glanced at the crowd and saw a deathly pale face among the crowd. In the crowd, Mu Shen took 2 steps back. His pale face was full of anger as he glared at Mu Wushuang. So she was the one who killed Shui? She killed my little sister, Murong Shui, for the sake of the Crown Prince. Mu Shen's heart was filled with hatred. A raging fire burned in his heart. The people of Long Yuan Nation seemed to have forgotten that the second miss of the Prime Minister's mansion and Mu Shen were both born from the same mother. Now that he heard such explosive news, how could he not feel hatred in his heart? The people nearby could even hear the sound of Mu Shen grinding his teeth. You killed your sister. I wonder if Mu Xingqiu knows about this? Yun Luofeng's lips curved into a faint smile. His demonic gaze gradually swept towards the ashen-faced Mu Xingqiu as he asked. Mu Wushuang's face was also deathly pale. She glanced at Mu Xingqiu, gritted her teeth and said, My grandfather, he knows. Murong Shui is only the daughter of a concubine. I'm the daughter of the legal wife. Do you think that my grandfather would be biased towards a daughter of a concubine? Hearing Mu Wushuang's words, Yun Luofeng gently narrowed her eyes. An evil glint flashed across her dark pupils. The two of you are really worthy of being called grandfather and granddaughter. One stole from his sister-in-law and killed his brother. The other didn't even spare his own sister. Indeed, even animals have become a family. Chapter 147. Mu Wushuang's heart completely collapsed. She glared fiercely at Yun Luofeng. Her originally elegant and dignified face now looked extremely sinister. Yun Luofeng, you will pay for what you've done to me today. Yun Luofeng smiled evilly as he leaned lazily against the grim man behind him. He then glanced sideways at the ashen-faced Mu Wushuang and said, In this world only I, Yun Luofeng, can scheme against others. No one has ever been able to scheme against me. I'll be waiting for you to come and settle the score with me. As soon as she finished speaking, her face turned solemn and she ordered with a sneer, Yun Xiao, tie these two up and send them to my parents' grave. My old man has been waiting there for a long time. All right. The man's grim eyes retracted from the beautiful girl's body and stared expressionlessly at Mu Xingqiu and Mu Wushuang. A cold, murderous intent flashed across his deep, black eyes. Stop, what are you doing? I'm a minister of the imperial court and you're just a little guard. Mu Xingqiu was frightened by the man's imposing manner. He felt that this man not only wants to tie him up, but also wants to kill him. Fear rose in his heart and he involuntarily took a step back. However, before he could turn around and escape, he was picked up by the man like a chicken. His face immediately turned pale with fright. Let's go. Yun Luofeng looked at the two people in Yun Zhao's hands and yawned lazily. He then turned around and walked towards the city gate. After the figures of these people had disappeared, the crowd at the city gate once again burst into a clamor of discussion. Sure enough, one may know a person's face but not their heart. I never thought that the elegant and dignified eldest lady of the Mu family would be such a person. Her sister was only infatuated with the crown prince and had no intention of getting the crown prince. In the end, she actually killed her sister. Didn't you hear what she said just now? Previously, Yun Luofeng of the Yun family had molested a handsome man in the street. TSK, I really didn't expect Mu Wuxuan to be such a person. I reckon that when this matter spreads out, the crown prince will no longer want her. That's right. A scheming bitch like Mu Wuxuan is not worthy of being the mother of the nation. Outside the city, surrounded by pine trees, two mausoleums stood quietly at the top of the mountain. On top of the mausoleum, the tombstones carved with cinnabar were very eye-catching, as if they had been painted with fresh blood. The white-haired old man crawled on the ground. His trembling fingers gently stroked the words on the tombstone. His eyes revealed a deep pain. It was a pity that young General Yun Yang, a young and talented man, had been buried in the battlefield. Young Mistress Bai Ling, a heroine among women, had risked her life for the country with Major General Yun and had been buried in the battlefield with him. Your parents' wish when they were alive was to be buried here together after they died. They wanted to be far away from the noise of the world and ignore the smoke of war in the world. Now, it can be said that their wish has been fulfilled. In this forest, no one can disturb them. Yun Luo closed his eyes slightly. Until now, he could still recall the war report he had received from the front line more than a decade ago. It said that Yun Yang and his wife had died on the battlefield, and the heart-wrenching pain they had felt. Before the pain in his heart could subside, he had to fight in place of his son to protect this land and its people. But in the end, what did he get in return? He couldn't avenge his eldest son and daughter-in-law, and his youngest son was also plotted against, living in a secret chamber without any light. As for him, he had left his granddaughter to go to the border for 10 years, but he had never been able to compete with imperial concubine Mu's pillow talk in the emperor's ear. Chapter 148. How could such a lecherous and incapable ruler be worthy of his loyalty? Yun Luofeng slowly walked towards the tombstone and stared at the carvings on the tombstone with her dark eyes. She seemed to be reminded of the respectable couple on the battlefield. Father, mother, I've come to see you. She was not the real Yun Luofeng. She was only borrowing the power of this body to continue living. However, it was because she had merged with this body that her feelings had gradually shifted towards the original body. Don't worry, I will avenge you sooner or later. Whether it's the Prime Minister's mansion, the muddle-headed and tyrannical dog of an emperor, or the person who had truly killed you, I will avenge them all. The young girl's words caused a sense of relief to appear in Master Dongfang's eyes. He then turned towards Mu Xingqiu and his grandson, who had been escorted to the tombstone. His elderly features instantly sank. Mu Xingqiu, you old thief, I never thought that this day would come for you. Ha! Yun Luo burst into laughter. His smile was refreshed and his eyes were filled with malevolence. Get out of here. You! Mu Xingqiu was enraged. Just as he was about to retort against the old man, a heavy kick landed fiercely on the back of his knees. Caught off guard, he knelt heavily on the ground. Humiliation. This was a great humiliation. Mu Xingqiu's head was pressed against the ground. He could not help but clench his fists tightly. His eyes were filled with humiliation and anger. Ever since he had risen to power, he had never suffered such humiliation. He would remember this debt. One day, he would make everyone in the general's mansion kneel before him and beg for mercy. Yang Linge, can your spirits in heaven see this? Yun Luo raised his head towards the sky and roared in delight. That year, this dog had leaked information and caused your deaths. However, the emperor had forgotten your contributions and chosen to side with this dog. Now, I'll make them kneel and kowtow 1,000 times in front of you. I hope that your souls can rest in peace. As he spoke, a stream of muddy tears rolled down the old man's face. How many years has it been? How many years had he waited for this day? He would never forget that year. When he went to complain to His Majesty only said one sentence: "Since it has already happened, it is useless to pursue it." Moreover, Minister Mu did not do it on purpose. How about this? Let him apologize to you. The dead cannot come back to life, so please restrain your grief. Apologize? He had caused the deaths of his son and daughter-in-law. How could a simple apology be enough? Therefore, in his rage, he summoned all the soldiers at the border and razed Mu Xingqiu's mansion to the ground. From then on, he didn't want to interfere with the country's war, but when he heard that the people at the border were living in dire straits, he had no choice but to take command and lead the troops into battle. Grandfather, Yun Luofeng looked at the old man who could no longer control his emotions and quickly stepped forward to support his body. His brows furrowed as he said, "It's getting late, I'll take you back to rest. After this, I'll get Yun Xiao to supervise them as they kowtow 1,000 times. Very well. Yun Luofeng closed his eyes slightly. Although he had waited a long time for this scene today, his heart still felt like it was being crushed by a huge rock, suffocating him. If he could, he wished that he had never been a general. That way, Yun Yang and his wife would not have died on the battlefield. As they walked out of the pine forest, Yun Luofeng slowly came to a halt. His dark eyes stared at the old man beside him and asked, "Grandfather, do you blame me for not taking Mu Xingqiu's life directly?" Chapter 149. Yun Luo shook his head slightly and sighed. "I know you must have your reasons for not killing them. Grandfather will not ask." This girl, no matter what she did, he was at ease. "Grandfather, have you ever wondered why the dog emperor is so biased towards the prime minister's residence?" Yun Luofeng stroked his chin, a trace of deep thought in his eyes. "Prime Minister Mu leaked military intelligence, causing my parents to die in battle. It is reasonable to say that Prime Minister Mu's behavior is already a crime of treason. Even if the dog emperor likes imperial concubine Mu, there is no reason to protect him." Yun Luo was stunned. He turned to look at Yun Luofeng in astonishment, his eyes clearly filled with doubt. "I really haven't considered this matter." Indeed, Mu Xingqiu's crime was treason, but not only did he not punish Prime Minister Mu, he even sided with him. Was it really because the emperor doted on imperial consort Mu? Yun Luofeng smiled evilly. "Also, I helped eunuch Lin regain his manly features. If it was an ordinary emperor, he would rather believe in my abilities than announce that eunuch Lin escaped the punishment of castration. In the imperial harem, what does it mean to have a man who has not been castrated? It means that he is a cuckold. Would the emperor be so stupid as to let himself wear a cuckold? Anyone could understand the significance of a man who had not been castrated remaining in the imperial harem as a eunuch. So, even if Gao Tu did not believe in her abilities, he would choose to believe her at this time. But he, in order to side with Mu Wuxuan, would rather let himself wear a cuckold? Yun Luofeng could not help but ponder over this matter. "Feng, according to what you've said, it's true." Yun Luo fell silent for a moment before returning to his senses. "Gao Tu is too biased towards the Mu family. If it wasn't for some reason, I would never believe it. So, that dog Mu Xingqiu cannot be touched for now." A murderous glint flashed across Yun Luofeng's eyes. "However, I can swear that one day, I will use Mu Xingqiu's head as a sacrifice to my parents. I will also make the unreasonable biased Gao Tu roll down from his high position." "Good." Yun Luo laughed out loud and patted Yun Luofeng's shoulder. "You are truly worthy of being a descendant of my Yun family. My Yun family members can lack other things, but they must have confidence and ambition. I believe that your achievements in the future will definitely be very high." Looking at the old man's relaxed expression, Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a devilish smile. In a few days, the red arbor tree would bear spirit fruits. It was time for her to give this old man 2 surprises. The next day, in the rear courtyard of the Yun family, a young girl lay lazily on a chaise longue. She held a grape in her hand and carefully removed the seeds from it before placing the sparkling, translucent grape into her mouth. I wonder what will happen if I plant these fruit trees in the divine grimoire space. The corners of Yun Luofeng's lips curled up into a devilish smile. Of course, she was only thinking about it. Who knew that just as she had this thought, a young and tender voice would ring out from within her soul. If you eat up Yun Xiao completely, I will tell you that fruit trees can also be planted. Xiao Mo's voice sounded a little angry. It had been more than half a year and his master had not made any progress at all. He was about to die from anxiety. Oh! Yun Luofeng gently raised an eyebrow. But you've already told me. What should I do? Chapter 150. In her soul, there was a moment of silence. Then she heard a loud wail, causing her soul to tremble. Wah, master, I don't want to talk to you anymore, you big jerk. The adorable little fellow cried and threw a tantrum before cutting off all contact with Yun Luofeng and ignoring her in a fit of pique. However, Yun Luofeng could see the little fellow squatting in a corner and drawing circles, his adorable face filled with grief. Just as Yun Luofeng was about to console him, a familiar figure entered her line of sight. Her lips curled into a smile. Yun Xiao, have you completed your mission? The man nodded grimly. 8,000 kowtows, not one less. Just 100 kowtows was enough to make a person bleed. Hence, one could imagine Mu Xingqiu's tragic state. He would probably need to rest for a long time after this incident. My lady. Suddenly, a maidservant hurried in. His Highness the Crown Prince is here to visit. The Crown Prince? Yun Luofeng raised an evil brow. Let him in. Yes, my lady. After reporting, the maidservant hurried out. Not long after, a handsome young man dressed in green robes appeared before her eyes. The young man's face was pale and he looked exhausted. His sharp black eyes stared at Yun Luofeng, who was lying on the chaise longue, and a complicated look appeared in his eyes. Yun Luofeng, did you do this on purpose? Gao Ling clenched his fists tightly. The first thing he had said to Yun Luofeng was not to beg for her to heal him, nor was it to beg for her forgiveness. Instead, it was a question. I did it on purpose, what can you do to me? What can you do to me? The young girl's tone was arrogant and domineering, as if she had no regard for this man, who was the dream lover of thousands of girls in Long Yuan country. You. Gao Ling's handsome face turned ashen and he spat angrily. You knew that I would regret this in the future. That's why you made me promise not to pester you that day by the Qin River, am I right? This woman did it on purpose. She had lied to me so that I would not pester her in the future. Yun Luofeng glanced at Gao Ling's remorseful face, raised the corners of his lips and said, Looks like I have good foresight. Gao Ling's heart trembled violently. That's right, Yun Luofeng was still a piece of trash who couldn't cultivate. However, based on her medical skills, she was qualified to become his crown princess. How could he let her go just like that? Furthermore, Elder Rong from the medical pavilion was full of admiration for this genius physician. Gao Ling was regretting his decision. Yun Luofeng, Gao Ling took a few steps towards Yun Luofeng and said arrogantly, You've loved me for so many years. You can't possibly become heartless just because you want to. I know that I'm still in your heart, you just don't want to admit it. No problem, this prince will fulfill my original promise and marry you. Yun Luofeng smiled. What about Mu Wushuang? Gao Ling was taken aback. After a moment of silence, he said, I will marry both of you at the same time. Are you satisfied? You want to hug them on both sides? That's not a bad idea. Yun Luofeng laughed icily. Her tone was unruly and her expression was insolent. Unfortunately, I, Yun Luofeng, will never share my man with anyone else. My man can only have me as his woman. If he dares to touch anyone else, I will cripple this pair of adulterers. Chapter 151. Yun Luofeng. Gao Ling could no longer suppress the anger in his chest. He clenched his fists and said, That's impossible. It's normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. No man would choose to marry only one woman. Marry me and I'll give you the honorable status of being the mother of the world. You'll be revered by all. The corners of Yun Luofeng's lips curled up into a devilish smile. Her voice was calm, so calm that it caused a storm to rise in one's heart. If that's the case, I'd rather not marry for the rest of my life. She'd rather not marry for the rest of her life than to share a man with someone else. Just how much courage did one have to make a woman say such words that went against the world? Yun Xiao glanced coldly at Gao Ling, who was about to explode in anger. He silently removed the grape seeds and brought the sparkling, jade-like grape to Yun Luofeng's lips. From the beginning to the end, he had never placed Gao Ling in his eyes. The young girl narrowed her eyes and her red lips gently sucked on the grape. She even swallowed the man's finger. A devilish smile appeared on her beautiful face and her warm tongue licked the man's finger. She stretched lazily and reclined on the chaise longue. With a smile that did not reach her eyes, she said, "There are rumors in the outside world that I, Yun Luofeng, am extremely lustful. Even though Mu Wushuang has proven that he was the one who spread these rumors, it's still very true. With such a perfect man by my side, do you think I'll continue to like you?" Gao Ling had noticed Yun Zhao's presence ever since he had entered the Yun family's backyard. However, he had deliberately avoided looking at him. Honestly, when he saw this man who stood beside Yun Luofeng like a mountain, a sense of inferiority arose from the depths of his heart. He did not know where this feeling of inferiority came from. He only felt that this cold man's aura was too strong and his features were so perfect that it made him jealous. That was why he had chosen to ignore him. However, when he heard Yun Luofeng's words, Gao Ling felt a surge of anger in his chest. He turned his gaze towards the expressionless man and spat fiercely, "Yun Luofeng, he's just a guard. Based on his status, he's not worthy of you. So what if this man's aura is strong? A guard was a guard, there was simply no comparison between them. Is that so?" Yun Luofeng raised her eyebrows slightly. She stretched lazily and stood up from the chaise longue. Then, she tugged on Yun Zhao's shirt forcefully and pulled him in front of her. She raised her head and kissed the man's cold lips. The man was startled at first, then he recalled the contents of the erotic pictures. He subconsciously hugged the girl in front of him, and somewhat awkwardly responded to the girl's kiss. "Looks like you've seen the contents of the erotic pictures?" Yun Luofeng pushed the man away and narrowed his eyes. A dangerous arc flashed across his eyes. Yun Xiao thought that she was angry. Her heart tightened, but she still nodded honestly, "If you don't like it, I can throw it away." Yun Luofeng smiled and her stern expression disappeared along with her smile. Her lips curled into a demonic smile as she patted Yun Zhao's shoulder encouragingly. "Not bad, you are worth teaching. You are much more mature than before." If it was the Yun Xiao from half a year ago, she reckoned that he would have fled the moment she kissed him. "Have you seen enough?" Yun Luofeng swept her gaze towards Gao Ling and smiled at the young man's eyes, which were filled with anger. "If you've seen enough, you can get lost. I'm not interested in showing others a live version of the erotic pictures." Chapter 152. Gao Ling's face was ashen as he spat angrily. "Yun Luofeng, you've actually degenerated yourself into an illicit relationship with a guard. You have no sense of shame. You're absolutely despicable. This crown prince must have been blind to want to save a whore like you. It's not like I don't have any other women besides you. Based on my noble status, countless women have sent themselves to my bed. Don't regret losing me." He was nearly driven mad with anger. This woman is actually flirting with a guard right in front of me. Furthermore, she would rather choose a lowly guard than me? Be it in terms of status or power, I'm definitely more powerful than this guard. Yun Luofeng will regret losing the chance to become the crown prince's consort. Likewise, Yun Luofeng curled his lips and retorted, "However, let me remind you, you've slept with so many women. If one day you come down with a venereal disease, don't come begging for me to treat you. I won't treat anyone from the imperial family." The young girl's words brought Gao Ling back to his senses. How could he have forgotten that his main purpose for coming here was to treat his illness? In the end, he had been so angered by these two lovey-dovey that he had forgotten his original purpose. Even the people from the medical pavilion had said that Yun Luofeng was the only one who could treat him. He could not give up on this opportunity. Yun Luofeng, was it you that caused me to lose all of my spiritual power? I'll give you a chance now. Treat me and we'll call it even. The more Gao Ling thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. That day by the Qin River, Yun Luofeng must have done something to him, which was why he had lost all his spiritual power. Yun Luofeng sneered, "I've said it before, I won't treat you." Gao Ling was about to curse, but he swallowed his words. His face was ashen as he said, "I'm the crown prince of the empire. You're the general's daughter. I order you to treat me." Order? Yun Luofeng raised an eyebrow. "Do you know what price the people from the medical pavilion had to pay to come to me? Not only did they offer me a red tree, they even asked me to treat you in a polite manner. You want me to treat you with a single order? Ridiculous, too ridiculous." Jailing's words sounded like a joke. Yun Luofeng laughed out loud. "Jailing, 10 years ago, my second uncle was seriously injured. My father went to the palace to save him. He even knelt before the royal doctor, but your people didn't do anything. What right do you have to ask me to save you? Unless your father personally kneels in front of my old man, I might consider it. 10 years ago, Gao Tu only needed to say one word, and second uncle wouldn't have to be paralyzed for 10 years. It was a pity that Gao Tu's words never came. Therefore, if she wanted him to save Gao Ling, she might consider it if Gao Tu knelt in front of old Master Gao himself. However, this was only a consideration. It was not certain whether he would help. Yun Luofeng, don't go overboard. My father is the emperor, and Yun Luo is only a subject. If the monarch wants the minister to die, the minister has no choice but to die. If my father wanted to kill Yun Luo, he would only need to say the word. If it weren't for the fact that Yun Luo has guarded the borders for so many years, your words today would be enough to execute his entire family." Yun Luofeng laughed evilly and said arrogantly, "Since I, Yun Luofeng, dare to say such words, it means that I'm not afraid of the royal family. I don't know what it means to say that if the emperor wants a subject to die, the subject must die. I only know that whoever offends the Yun family will be executed." Chapter 153. 10 years. The Yun family had endured for 10 years. Now, because of her appearance, it was time for the Yun family to rise again. No one would ever dare to offend the Yun family again. "Yun Xiao, throw him out of here. If Gao Ling dares to step into the general's residence in the future, I'll break one of his legs. If he dares to take 2 steps, I'll break both of his legs. How will he be able to walk through the gates of the general's residence?" The young lady flicked her sleeves and crossed her legs. She exuded a domineering aura, as if she was the ruler of the world. She looked like a true ruler as she sat on a chair and looked down at Gao Ling. Before Gao Ling could react, he felt a tall, black shadow looming over him. A cold, murderous aura emanated from the shadow, causing his heart to tremble. Then, a powerful force slammed into his chest. Immediately, his body shot out like an arrow from a bow, flying out of the courtyard and out of the door. No one had noticed that after Yun Xiao had thrown Gao Ling out of the courtyard, her cold eyes had inadvertently glanced at an old tree not too far away. Then, a gray figure had flown out of the courtyard from behind the old tree. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared without anyone noticing. Outside the gates of the general's residence, the crowd had gathered and were pointing at Gao Ling, who had flown out of the general's residence. Gao Ling felt ashamed. He quickly rose to his feet and hurriedly walked towards the other side of the street. However, he did not notice that a gray shadow was following closely behind him. Just as Gao Ling turned into an alley, a fist suddenly came from behind and landed on Gao Ling's back with a loud thud. Gao Ling spat out a mouthful of blood and turned angrily towards the man in gray. He asked angrily, "Who are you? Why did you attack me?" The man in gray stroked his chin and clicked his tongue. "This crown prince of Long Yuan country is really soft and tender. If I were to sell him to the bamboo house, he would fetch a good price." Hearing the man in gray's words, Gao Ling's expression changed completely. There was no one in the mainland who did not know what the bamboo house was. Don't be fooled by the elegant name of the bamboo house. It was actually a brothel. However, it was different from ordinary brothels. The people in this brothel were all men. All the guests they served were men. It could be said that Bamboo House provided a chance for a pervert with a fetish for men to enjoy. As for the owner of the bamboo building, it was said that she was a woman, but no one had ever seen her true appearance. Hero, Gao Ling took a deep breath and suppressed the rage in his heart. He then asked, "May I know how I've offended you?" "You didn't offend me, you offended my master." The man in gray robes glanced at Gao Ling and laughed gloatingly. "However, you've got guts to snatch my master's woman. You must be tired of living. Selling you into a bamboo house to serve a man is really a bargain for you." It was said that Lin Qiong, the unlucky girl, was punished by her master because she didn't do her best in dealing with young madam. Therefore, he had to perform well so that he wouldn't end up like that unlucky guy. "Who is your master?" Gao Ling was taken aback. This man in gray was far too powerful. Perhaps even the strongest cultivator of the royal family was no match for him. If that was the case, wouldn't his master be even more powerful? "You don't even know who my master is?" The man in gray looked at Gao Ling with disdain. "Of course, you don't deserve to know my master's name. All you need to know is that he's called the Ghost Emperor." Chapter 154. The Ghost Emperor? Gao Ling raised his head in shock, and his eyes widened as if he had been frightened. His handsome face instantly turned pale. "Did you say the Ghost Emperor?" Others may not know about the Ghost Emperor, but as the crown prince of the royal family, Gao Ling was well aware of the powers that were above the royal family. The Ghost Emperor was a legendary figure and no one had ever seen his true face. It was said that he was extremely powerful and bloodthirsty. He could turn a city into ashes with a wave of his hand and trample millions of soldiers with a lift of his foot. Even the spiritual sect behind the royal family had to be wary of him. However, Gao Ling could not figure out when he had offended the Ghost Emperor and snatched his woman away. Suddenly, a possibility surfaced in Gao Ling's mind, and his expression darkened. Even though he had regretted his actions and wanted to save Yun Luofeng, he had only left the general's mansion for half an incense's time. Therefore, the Ghost Emperor's woman could not be that slut, Yun Luofeng. There was only one possibility. It had to be Mu Wushuang. He never thought that the Ghost Emperor would take a liking to Mu Wushuang. If that was the case, it would be troublesome for him to marry Mu Wushuang. "Hero," a light flashed across Gao Ling's eyes as he asked, "Actually, the person that the Ghost Emperor hates is not me, but Yun Luofeng, who has humiliated the woman he loves." The gray-robed man was dumbfounded. He blinked his eyes in a daze. What did this guy mean by that? What does he mean by Yun Luofeng has humiliated the woman my master loves? Doesn't my master love Yun Luofeng? When has Yun Luofeng ever humiliated me? No matter what you say now, it's useless. The man in gray could not understand the meaning of this sentence, so he did not say anything more. He sneered at Gao Ling. "Chun Yang has been in dire need of manpower recently. With your soft and tender skin, I'm sure you'll be able to earn a fortune for her." Bang! This time, without giving Gao Ling any chance to react, the man in gray raised his elbow and slammed it into Gao Ling's forehead. Gao Ling's vision blurred and he lost consciousness. "Who told you to try and take liberties with my future madam?" The man in gray kicked Gao Ling's back and spat angrily. "Is Lady Yun someone that a good-for-nothing like you can dream of? What's so great about a crown prince? How dare you order Miss Yun to treat your illness? I didn't expect my master to listen to Miss Yun. If I let you order Miss Yun around, wouldn't that mean that my master's status isn't as noble as yours?" The more the gray-robed man thought about it, the angrier he became. He kicked Gao Ling even harder. If not for the fact that his master did not want others to know his identity, he would have already announced that Yun Luofeng was the future wife of the Ghost Emperor. She wanted to see how these shameless people would pester her now. The last kick landed on Gao Ling's crotch. The intense pain caused Gao Ling's body to tremble and he almost woke up. Unfortunately, he didn't wake up and was knocked out again by the gray-robed man. "If it wasn't for Master wanting to spare your life for now, I would have already dismembered you into 1,000 pieces." The gray-robed man snorted coldly. He swiftly put Gao Ling into a sack and slung it over his shoulder. Then he quickly flew away. The bamboo building was similar to the medical pavilion. Every country had a station. However, the influence of the two forces was completely different. Of these two parties, one focused on medical skills, while the other focused on having fun. Oh, I was wondering who it was today. It's actually young Master Qin. Chapter 155. Dressed in a long, jade green dress, she gracefully walked down the stairs. This was an extremely beautiful woman. Her seductiveness was different from Feng Ye's. Compared to Feng Ye's enchanting appearance, this woman was more of a flirt. She was naturally seductive, and when she raised her hand, it made people feel that she was intentionally seducing them. Only women who often hung out in romantic places would have this kind of seductive attitude. The corner of the man's forehead twitched and he shook his head helplessly. When you're facing me, can you put away your seductiveness? No wonder my master doesn't like you. Chun Yang's expression stiffened for a moment. She took a deep breath and her pair of romantic eyes contained a hint of resentment. Your master is truly unreasonable. I only wanted to follow him, but he refused me without even thinking about it. In any case, I, Chun Yang, have managed such a large bamboo building, but he didn't give me any face. My master doesn't accept female subordinates. It's not like you don't know this. Furthermore, your bamboo building is such a place. It would be strange if my master would take a liking to it. Qin Yuan looked at her with disdain. This woman managed a romantic place. How could master not hate her? Based on her, she still wanted to follow master? Master probably couldn't even be bothered to look at her. I know that your master hates women, but this bamboo building of mine is a business between men. Your master shouldn't be this disgusted. Chun Yang knitted her willowy eyebrows. You don't understand? Qin Yuan said mockingly, my master has kept his chastity for so many years just to wait for his future wife. Now that he has found the target he wants to pursue, he didn't hesitate to put down all his dignity and willingly become her bodyguard. Chun Yang's eyes lit up. Are you serious? There's really a woman who can accept your master? I'm very curious about who that woman is. Unfortunately, I've always thought of your master as a homosexual. Moreover, I'm planning to draw him and another man in my sketchbook. Qin Yuan's face darkened. Chun Yang, on account of our many years of friendship, let me give you a warning. If you dare to draw my master and another man, my master will definitely kill you. However, if you draw him and his future wife, maybe my master will be happy and let you go to Long Yuan Nation to serve his wife. Of course, don't count on becoming my master's subordinate. Actually, Qin Yuan was just casually saying these words. Who would have thought that Chun Yang would actually take it seriously? She unconsciously fell into deep thought. A woman who could subdue a ghost emperor must be very domineering. In that case, who would go up and who would go down? This problem needed to be carefully considered. Chun Yang, I'm here today to give you something. Qin Yuan recalled the events of today. He threw the gunny sack on his shoulder onto the ground. At that moment, the gunny sack loosened and an unconscious youth appeared in front of Madame Chun's eyes. Looking at the youth's fair and handsome face, Madame Chun's eyes lit up once again. This time, the goods are really not bad. Soft skin and tender flesh. I reckon that we can sell them for a good price. Qin Yuan raised the corners of his lips. This fellow is the crown prince of Long Yuan Nation. He had delusions of pestering my future wife and had offended my master. So I've sent him to you to enjoy 3 months. Within these 3 months, find me a few hundred strong men to serve him. After 3 months, throw him back to Long Yuan Nation. Also, my future wife doesn't like people interfering with her matters. In the future, you must never reveal that my master had asked you to do this. Otherwise, I won't be able to protect you. Chapter 156. Hearing this, Chun Yang shuddered. It was obvious that she was terrified of the man who was known as the Ghost Emperor. Don't worry, I'll take good care of him. Chun Yang regained her senses and gritted her teeth. This guy can offend anyone, but he even dares to offend the Ghost Emperor's woman. He must be tired of living. I'll let him receive guests tonight. He must receive 100 guests every day before he can rest. Qin Yuan nodded. Chun Yang, you should thank me. This crown prince is not bad looking and it's his first time selling himself. I'm sure you'll earn a lot of money. Hee hee, Chun Yang giggled and winked at Qin Yuan. Thank you, young Master Qin. If you have such good stuff in the future, you must send it to me. To thank you, I'll never draw you with another man in my sketchbook ever again. Qin Yuan's face darkened once again. Every time he thought of this woman drawing him with another man, he would feel the urge to explode in anger. Who asked him to befriend such a perverted woman when he was young and immature? It was too late for regrets now. After Mu Xingqiu and his grandson pleaded guilty, another major event happened in Long Yuan country. On the day after Mu Xingqiu and his grandson pleaded guilty, Crown Prince Gao Ling disappeared. The citizens of Long Yuan country thought that Gao Ling had been provoked by Mu Wuxuan and felt that he had loved the wrong person all this while. Hence, he chose to hide out of humiliation. Because of this, Mu Wuxuan did not dare to appear in public and sealed himself in the prime minister's residence. Only Yun Luofeng knew that this matter had something to do with Yun Xiao. Only Yun Luofeng would have the motive to attack Gao Ling. However, Yun Luofeng did not question Yun Xiao's actions. She pretended not to know anything and began to cultivate every day until nightfall. Fortunately, her tireless cultivation was also successful, and her cultivation was advancing by leaps and bounds in the backyard of the general's residence. Yun Luofeng frowned and looked at the young girl walking in front of him. He asked in confusion, "Feng, where are you taking me?" The young girl slowly turned her head and smiled evilly. "You'll know when we get there. Now, prepare yourself, I have a big surprise for you." Surprise? Yun Luo's old face glowed with pride. "You little girl, did you fill up my treasury again? My granddaughter is more capable. Quick, take me to the treasury." Ever since he learned about his granddaughter's medical skills, the old man was no longer as thrifty as before. He desperately began to spend money. Anyway, many people would send money to his house after he spent it all. It would be a waste if he didn't spend it. Anyway, the money was earned by his granddaughter. Shouldn't he be filial to the old man? Yun Luofeng's face was full of black lines. "This surprise isn't in the silver treasury. You'll know once you come with me." "No longer in the treasury?" The old man frowned again. Since it wasn't money, what kind of surprise could it be? As he was thinking, the old man suddenly noticed that the girl in front of him had stopped. He couldn't help but be stunned. "We've arrived?" "That's right." The young girl slowly turned her head and raised the corners of her lips in a demonic manner. "It's been more than half a year since I established the Steel Flame Legion. Grandpa, it's time to show you my power. At the same time, I'll let you see someone." The surprise that this little girl was talking about was the Legion? The old man was stunned once again. This Legion had only been established for half a year and it shouldn't have become very powerful. After all, no one knew the talents of the previous members better than he did. If that was the case, what did this little girl mean? Chapter 157. Seeing that the young girl had opened the entrance to the underground tunnel, Yun Luo returned to his senses and followed Yun Luofeng down the stairs without any hesitation. Over the past 6 months, the old man had not come to the underground training ground so as not to disturb Yun Luofeng's interest. Now, when he saw how luxurious the training ground was, he was completely shocked. The enormous training ground was divided into a few rings. These rings were constructed in a strict and dignified manner. From afar, it gave off a sense of grandeur. Other than that, there were countless houses for people to stay in the training ground. It was warm in the winter and cool in the summer. It was very comfortable. "Little girl, how big of a hole did you dig? Why didn't you notice anything when you dug such a big training ground?" The old man looked at Yun Luofeng in shock. He found it hard to believe that this little girl had dug such a big hole without anyone noticing. A project like this could not have been completed without a few months. "It's all thanks to this little fella's help." Yun Luofeng smiled devilishly. Just as she finished speaking, a little head peeked out from her sleeve. Its big and adorable eyes scanned the surroundings before stopping on Yun Luofeng and it squeaked twice. "This is a gold-seeking rat?" The old man was even more shocked. "And it's a low-rank high spiritualist at that? Impossible. Gold-seeking rats were the most useless of spiritual beasts. It was said that they would never be able to break through to an intermediate beginner spiritualist, So how could they become a high spiritualist? Could it be that he had been wrong all this while? It just broke through to become a high spiritualist yesterday. Yun Luofeng gently stroked Milk Tea's little head and raised the corners of his lips. Of course, this little fella isn't a surprise for you. I've brought you here today mainly to let you meet someone. At that moment, a voice suddenly rang out from behind, causing the puzzled old man's body to stiffen. Father, you're here? The old man turned his head stiffly. Suddenly, a handsome and elegant face appeared in front of him. Xianxia, weren't you at the back of the mountain? Why are you here at the training ground? It was only at this moment that Yun Luo suddenly realized that the man in front of him wasn't sitting on the wheelchair but was standing in front of him. His legs were very straight and his body was tall and slender. His handsome face no longer had its usual sadness and was replaced by a confident smile. Just like the talented young man who had swept the entire Long Yuan nation 10 years ago. What's going on? The old man's voice trembled slightly. You too, tell me what happened? Grandfather. Yun Luofeng looked at Yun Xianxia and slowly walked in front of the old man. He smiled and said, Actually, half a year ago, I had already helped second uncle recover from his injuries. However, because he had been paralyzed for 10 years, he couldn't walk like an ordinary person and had to learn to walk from the beginning. That's why I didn't tell you about this matter. Now that second uncle can move freely, it's time for me to tell you everything. The old man's entire body trembled. The gaze he used to look at Yun Xianxia turned from shock to excitement. Then, he suddenly thought of something and turned around. He grabbed Yun Luofeng's clothes and shouted angrily, You damned girl, what else are you hiding from me? Hurry up and tell me everything. Chapter 158. At this moment, the old man was furious. He glared angrily at Yun Luofeng, as if he wanted to tear the other party apart and eat him alive. In the eyes of those who didn't know better, they would think that this girl was his enemy. Yun Luofeng looked at the old man's hand that was holding onto her clothes and raised his eyebrows. I haven't told you yet. My second uncle has already become the commander of the Iron Man Legion. For the past 6 months, he has been helping me train these people. Other than that, what else? The old man snorted unhappily. This girl had really hidden a lot of things from him in the past half a year. She hadn't even told her that Xianxia's leg had been cured. How could this not make the old man angry? Unfortunately, he couldn't bear to hit her, so he could only roar a few times to vent the unwillingness in his heart. This, Yun Luofeng said guiltily, you'll know when you see the people of the Iron Flame Legion. As he spoke, a series of neat and uniform footsteps came from behind him. It was as if they were trained soldiers, and it immediately attracted the old man's attention. The old man let go of the girl in his hand and turned to look at the people who were marching over. When he saw the dignified figures of those people, his eyes were filled with shock. These people are the useless trash who were like mud half a year ago? This group of people were soldiers who had received formal training. They were not inferior to the royal army. But half a year ago, they were just a group of trash at the bottom. It's all thanks to second uncle's good training. Yun Luofeng raised the corner of her lips. Under the leadership of her second uncle, the Iron Man Legion had gradually grown up, and the Flame Legion was not bad either. Even she was surprised by the achievements and perseverance of these people. Yun Xianxia smiled. Her handsome eyes were filled with gentleness as she looked at Yun Luofeng. No, my training is only a supplementary effect. The real reason why these people have grown up is because of Feng. If it wasn't for the marrow-cleansing medicine and spirit-gathering medicine that Fenger took out, they wouldn't have grown so quickly. At first, Yun Luo only noticed the tenacity of these people. Now that he heard Yun Xianxia's words, he used his mental strength to probe the strength of these people. When he felt the power of the entire army, the old man was dumbfounded. He stood there like a tree stump. How was this possible? The imperial family had also probed the talents and foundations of these people. None of them would be able to break through to the rudimentary intermediate spiritualist stage in their lifetime. Now, everyone in the army had become intermediate spiritualists, and a few of them had even broken through to advanced spiritualists. His strength was equal to that of a general like him. One had to know that the most powerful person in Long Yuan country was only a high spiritual warrior. Therefore, if Yun Luofeng brought out the strength of this legion, it would surely cause an intense wave of shock. Perhaps even the people behind the royal family would be lured out. Feng, tell me, how did you do it? The old man slowly turned to look at Yun Luofeng. One could imagine how shocked he was. These people's aptitudes are very low, so how did you help them become advanced spiritualists? Yun Luofeng smiled disapprovingly. Her eyes were filled with confidence. I've said it before, I don't choose people based on talent. Even if they are trash, I can turn them into geniuses. As for the marrow-cleansing liquid, it could cleanse one's marrow and bones, and reforge one's innate talent. If they can't even break through under such conditions, then there's no need for me to form this army. Chapter 159. The old man's breathing tightened. Excitement was written all over his face. He rubbed his fists and said with a smile, "Little girl, is that marrow-cleansing liquid really that effective? Then this old man plans to live in this place from now on and bathe in the marrow-cleansing liquid every day." His expression as he looked at the marrow-cleansing liquid was as if he was facing a top-grade beauty. His gaze was lustful and wretched, as if he wanted to strip off the clothes of that top-grade beauty. Xianxia's face was filled with black lines. She subconsciously wanted to pretend that she didn't know this old man. She had never seen an old man look at a pool of water with a lustful gaze. This was too embarrassing. Yun Luofeng was silent for a moment before he raised his lips and said, "If you like, you can come here and bathe in the marrow-cleansing liquid. However, you are already old, and the marrow-cleansing liquid does not have much of an effect on you, so I have prepared another gift for you." As soon as she finished speaking, Yun Luofeng reached into her sleeves and pulled out a vermilion fruit. When the old man saw the vermilion fruit, he couldn't help but be stunned. Red fruit? Wasn't this the red fruit that the people from the medical pavilion had given her? It was said that it took a year for the red fruit to bear fruit. It had only been half a year, and the red fruit had already successfully borne fruit? Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders. In theory, this should be a red fruit, but I'm used to calling it a spirit fruit. As for its effects, you'll know when you eat it. The old man didn't hesitate. He took the fruit Yun Luofeng passed to him and took a bite. Immediately, a fragrant aroma flowed through his mouth, causing his eyes to suddenly brighten. In a few bites, he finished the spirit fruit. This red fruit tastes pretty good. When the time comes, prepare more of them and put them in my study. When I'm greedy, I can use them to satisfy my cravings. The old man wiped his mouth, his chrysanthemum-like old face full of smiles. Yun Luofeng's face darkened. What did this old fellow think the spirit fruit was? To satisfy his cravings? If his words were to spread, there would probably be many people on the continent who would gang up on him. Boom! Suddenly, a powerful wave of spiritual energy rushed into the old man's dantian and fiercely collided against the barrier. In an instant, the originally solid barrier was like a thin piece of paper. It was broken by the powerful spiritual energy and reached a new realm. The old man was dumbfounded. Xianxia was stunned. Even the members of the Steel Flame Legion were astonished. They looked at the dumbfounded old man, not understanding what was going on. Why did General Yun break through without any warning? Looks like the effects of this spirit fruit are pretty good. The girl's lazy laughter entered his ears, causing the stiff old man to raise his head mechanically. His voice began to tremble at this moment, and his words were clearly filled with disbelief. What's going on? That barrier of his had existed for many years, and no matter how hard he tried, he could not advance a single level. But why did he actually break through now? This was simply impossible. I said before, not only will I help second uncle stand up, I will also think of a way to help you break through. Yun Luofeng chuckled. His demonic eyes stared at Yun Luofeng as the corners of his lips curled up. Now, I have fulfilled my promise. Boom. Thunder pierced through the ears. After receiving Yun Luofeng's acknowledgement, Yun Luofeng was once again dumbfounded. He thought back to how he had asked Yun Luofeng to give him the red fruit as a snack. It was simply ridiculous. Chapter 160. A spiritual fruit that could allow advanced spiritualists to break through was much rarer than the simple red fruit. Perhaps his granddaughter could only produce one of them. Haha. Suddenly, a burst of crazy laughter resounded throughout the underground training ground. His laughter was filled with madness, but it also revealed the excitement in his heart. How many years has it been? How many years has it been since I broke through? Gao Tu, you dog emperor, just you wait. I'll make you pay for everything that happened back then. Yun Luofeng glanced at the crazy old man, then he looked at the people from the army. There are 3 people from the Iron Steel Army that broke through to become paramount spiritualists, and 2 from the Flame Army. The 5 of you can come forward to receive a spiritual fruit, but I suggest that you consume it when you're an intermediate high spiritualist to use it to break through. The old man, who was laughing hysterically, was caught off guard when he heard Yun Luofeng's words. As a result, he could not hold back his laughter and choked on his own saliva. His face flushed and he coughed violently. Bastard, how many fucking spiritual fruits do you have? The old man finally caught his breath and glared at Yun Luofeng furiously. Earlier on, the young lady said that she was going to give him a surprise, but he thought that it was more like a shock. If he was not careful, he might not be able to withstand the surprise and suffer a heart attack. Yun Luofeng kept quiet for some time before he answered conservatively, I'll probably be able to give one to each member of the Iron Flame Army. Yun Luofeng's heart twitched when he heard what Yun Luofeng said, and it almost stopped beating. He initially thought that Yun Luofeng would only have one of such a magical fruit at most. Who knew that the young fellow would be able to get so many of them without a sound? Enough for each member of the Iron Flame Army to have one? As if he thought that Yun Luofeng was not shocked enough, Yun Luofeng added, even if these fruits are used up, I can still get more. Therefore, if the Yun family's protectors break through to become advanced spiritualists, they can also come to me to receive a spiritual fruit, provided that they're loyal to the Yun family. Yun Luo completely went crazy. He once again grabbed Yun Luofeng's clothes and said angrily, You little girl, why didn't you take out such a good thing earlier to show your filial respect to your grandfather? Quick, give me another 180, the more the better. In any case, I won't complain about having more. The corners of Yun Luofeng's eyebrows slightly slanted upwards. He raised his hand and slapped away Yun Luo's claw. The spirit fruit will only be effective the first time you eat it. After that, no matter how much you eat, it won't be of much use. Can I eat it like a fruit? The old man rolled his eyes and reached out his hand domineeringly. Quick, hand over the spirit fruit. Yun Luofeng's heart twitched. She took out 2 more spirit fruits from her sleeve and placed them in the old man's hand. What else? I only brought 3 with me. I don't have any more now. I'll give you all 3. I'll bring the rest to your study tomorrow. Hearing Yun Luofeng's words, Yun Luo looked at her suspiciously and asked doubtfully, Are you telling the truth? More real than pearls. Yun Luofeng nodded with a sincere look on her face. If that's the case, I'll let you off for now. Yun Luo kept the spirit fruits and scoffed. Remember, if you have anything good in the future, show your filial respect to your grandfather first. Chapter 161. Yun Luofeng finally heaved a sigh of relief and replied with a smile, Understood. In the future, no matter what good things I have, I'll be the first to bring them to you. That's more like it. The old man smiled in satisfaction. All right, I won't disturb you anymore. Train well, I'll be leaving first. Ha. Yun Luofeng laughed heartily and walked out of the training room. Second uncle. After Yun Luofeng saw that the old man had left, he turned to look at the handsome and elegant man. I still have 5 spiritual fruits here, so you can distribute them to the members who have become advanced spiritualists. If anyone else becomes an advanced spiritualist in the future, remember to inform me. Yun Xianxia smiled, All right. By the way, second uncle, remember to take the medicine I gave you on time. Tomorrow, I have something to do and will have to leave Long Yuan country. When I return, I'll help you repair your dantian and restore your strength. Yun Xianxia was stunned. She looked at Yun Luofeng with excitement. Xiao Feng, you said that I can recover my strength? That's right. Yun Luofeng nodded. Not only can I help you recover your strength, I can also make you stronger. The prerequisite is that you can't stop using the medicine I give you. When I return, I'll be able to help you recover your strength. At this moment, Xianxia's heart was in turmoil. Ever since he had been injured 10 years ago, he had never thought that he would be able to recover his strength. Now that he was able to stand up again, he was already satisfied. However, he had never expected that his little niece would have the ability to help him recover his strength. This was something he did not even dare to think about. Xiaofeng, I really don't know how to thank you. Yun Luofeng blinked and smiled evilly. We're family, there's no need to thank me. Second uncle, no matter what, I'll cure you completely. Looking at the young girl's determined eyes, Xianxia smiled. His handsome face was filled with confidence and pride. Xiaofeng, with you in the Yun family, why should we worry about not being strong? Second uncle believes in you and will wait for your return. The members of the Steel Flame Legion were also filled with gratitude, and their determination deepened. There was no other reason than that Yun Luofeng had given them such a precious treasure to consume. It was also because of the spiritual fruits that those who had yet to break through to advanced spiritualists were motivated to work hard. Perhaps even Yun Luofeng did not expect her actions today to make everyone in the army work so hard that they would forget to eat and sleep just to break through to paramount spiritualists. The next day, a furious roar resounded through the skies of the Yun family, reverberating for a long time. Yun Luofeng, you damned girl, you actually dared to run away. When you return, see if I don't smack your butt. This voice was heard by everyone in the Yun family, causing them to jump in fright. They did not understand how the eldest miss had provoked the general, causing the general to lose his temper. It seemed that ever since the general came back, he had been infuriated by eldest miss every 2 or 3 days. They were really afraid that one day, the general would be angered to death by her. Yun Luo was furious. That girl had promised to deliver 180 spirit fruits to his study today. In the end, he had waited for an entire morning, but the young girl had not appeared. Unable to wait any longer, he had personally gone to look for her. However, he had only found a letter in the young girl's room. The letter stated that the little girl had run away from home. Of course, Yun Luo was just joking. He could not bear to actually smack Yun Luofeng's butt. Even if the young girl lost a single strand of hair, his heart would ache for a long time, let alone beating her up. Chapter 162. Flowing Gold Country. It was once one of the most powerful countries on the mainland. However, a few years ago, the general of Flowing Gold Country, Ibu Fan, had been defeated by Yun Luo and was forced to hand over the third prince, Yi Ling, as a hostage. From then on, Flowing Gold Country could only exist as a vassal country to Long Yuan Country. However, in just half a year's time, an organization called the Windfall Pavilion had suddenly appeared in Flowing Gold Country. It was said that the Windfall Pavilion had information on every country on the mainland and was extremely powerful. In just half a year's time, they had become a household name and their name had spread far and wide. However, many organizations had wanted to find out who the pavilion master of the Windfall Pavilion was. However, the pavilion master was very mysterious. No one even knew her name, let alone see her face. At this moment, in the Windfall Pavilion, when Yun Luofeng had just stepped into the hall, a figure as light as the wind quickly pounced towards Yun Luofeng. My lady, I've missed you so much. Qing Yan became excited the moment she saw Yun Luofeng. Unfortunately, when the white-clothed girl in front of her saw her pouncing figure, she dodged to the side without a second thought. With a plop, Qing Yan didn't have time to stop her steps. She was caught off guard and fell to the ground. My lady! The little servant girl raised her little face and stared resentfully at Yun Luofeng. Qing Yan, I'm here on official business. I don't have time to catch up with you. Yun Luofeng raised the corners of his lips and a demonic smile hung on his lips. The little girl before him was the newly promoted commander of the Flame Regiment, Qing Yan. In the last half a year, she'd sent Yi Ling and Qing Yan to Flowing Gold Kingdom to establish the Windfall Pavilion and gather information in the world for the sake of finding the true culprit that had killed her parents. Now that she'd almost made some progress, she'd rushed to Flowing Gold Kingdom just now. That's right, where's Yi Ling? Why haven't I seen him come out? Yun Luofeng scanned his surroundings but did not see Yi Ling. An undetectable light flashed across his jet-black eyes. Qing Yan's expression changed slightly when she heard this. My lady, Yi Ling has been discovered. What's going on? Yun Luofeng turned to look at Qin Yan. Why didn't you tell me about this? Qin Yan bit her lip and a hint of anger appeared on her delicate features. A few days ago, Ye Ling had bumped into his half-brother, the second Prince Ye Luo, on the street. Ye Luo had recognized him and his arrival in Flowing Gold Country had been exposed. My lady, do you know how outrageous his brother is? His talent and strength were clearly inferior to Yi Ling's, but he relied on the fact that his mother was doted on and insulted Yi Ling. How infuriating! Seeing the young servant girl's angry eyes, Yun Luofeng smiled faintly and asked, Yi Ling was humiliated, not you. Why are you so angry? Don't tell me you and Yi Ling. Miss. Qin Yan hurriedly interrupted Yun Luofeng. She angrily stamped her foot, her face flushed red. What nonsense are you talking about? Yi Ling and I are only companions, that's why I can't bear to see others humiliate him. It's really not what you think. Is that so? Yun Luofeng smiled devilishly and his jet-black eyes fell upon Qin Yan. Qin Yan, even though Yi Ling is the third prince of Flowing Gold Country, you are no ordinary little servant girl. You are someone I trust. If the two of you are truly in love with each other, I will make the decision on your behalf regarding this marriage. Qin Yan's heart trembled fiercely, and her clear eyes were filled with deep emotion. Chapter 163. Ever since the young miss had failed to hang herself, she had changed into a completely different person. However, the young miss now not only made her feel very reliable, she liked her even more now. Young miss, I know that you're doing this for my own good. However, even if he and I are in love, the Emperor of Flowing Gold Country would never allow it. The imperial family values a marriage of equal social status. A marriage of equal social status? Yun Luofeng laughed gently. Both of you are members of the Steel Flame Regiment, so this is what they call a marriage of equal social status. If the two of you truly love each other, the Emperor of Flowing Gold Country would never be able to stop you. My, Yun Luofeng's, people are never unworthy of anyone. If this is a one-sided love, I cannot help you. After all, matters of the heart cannot be forced. Qin Yan nodded and a bitter smile appeared on her delicate face. Young miss, I understand. Yun Luofeng patted Qin Yan's shoulder soundlessly. Let's go, take me to Yi Ling. I have a few things to understand from him. Yes, young Mississippi, under Yun Luofeng's reassurance, Qin Yan regained her cheerfulness. She blinked and giggled as she walked out of Zephyr Pavilion. Yun Luofeng shook his head in exasperation as he stared at the little servant girl's joyful figure. A demonic smile appeared on the corners of his lips before he followed Qin Yan out without any hesitation. In Flowing Gold Country, once a prince comes of age, he will leave the imperial palace and establish his own family. At this moment, Yi Ling was sitting in his study in the third prince's mansion. He was holding a book in his hand, but his mind was not on the book at all. He looked rather absent-minded. Just then, a squeaking sound suddenly rang out from the side of his feet, instantly attracting his attention. When Yi Ling noticed the white hamster squeaking at his feet, his eyes widened and he asked in astonishment, "Milk tea, what are you doing here? Could it be?" As if remembering something, Yi Ling's eyes filled with excitement. He slowly turned his head and his gaze gradually turned towards the door. In that instant, the young girl in white who was leaning against the door entered his sight. The young girl crossed her arms and leaned lazily against the door railing. The corners of her lips curled into a beautiful smile. Her robes were as white as snow and fluttered in the gentle breeze. Yi Ling, long time no see. I didn't expect you to become the third prince of the Flowing Gold Kingdom. Yi Ling withdrew the excitement in his eyes and replaced it with respect. He hurriedly rose from his seat and greeted the young lady at the door. "Master, why have you come?" Yun Luofeng smiled evilly. Her white robes fluttered like a gentle breeze and landed on the chair in front of the desk. "What, you don't welcome me?" The young girl brushed her white robes and crossed her legs. She picked up the brush on the table and played with it in her hand. She looked at Yi Ling with an evil smile in her black eyes, lazy and wanton. "However, I think you're doing a good job as the third prince." She scanned the surroundings of the study, and the smile on her lips deepened. Yi Ling laughed bitterly. Master, don't tease me. What